He's Tim Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. You are listening to Boston Public Radio live from the Boston Public Library, streaming on Facebook.com and YouTube.com.
There's some
have a little
protesters
disturbance
at the library,
in the library
talking about the situation
about
in Gaza.
Palestine.
We're going to take a brief break, by the way, while we resolve this. We'll be right back. You're listening to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan, as you said a minute ago. So what happened here at the library is we are live, obviously. We're ready to start the show. And seconds after Marjorie said, welcome to Boston Public Radio, I don't know, maybe 50 demonstrators, I'd say?
Something like that.
50 demonstrators directing their comments at what are the huge numbers of murders of innocent people in Gaza, started reading a statement and chanting and that sort of thing. And I think I speak for Marjorie, and obviously if I don't, please correct me. Two things. One, I'm not that into disrupting a live broadcast, particularly since we had no idea what they were going to do. We had to cut us off, so no one heard them except maybe another 50 people at the library. And secondly, I hope people think, and I hope they think, we've been pretty fair in our coverage of what is happening in the Middle East. And frankly, had they called us and said they'd like to be represented on the show, the likelihood of them being guests and talking about their concerns live on the air would be extraordinarily high.
And being heard.
And being heard, right. And they were not heard here because, again, we didn't cut them off because of the message. Let me be clear. We cut them off because we had no idea what was happening and what would happen, and we were concerned about the safety of our colleagues and other people at the library.
Yeah, and thank you to the security guards.
Absolutely,
very much
thank you.
for taking care of the situation.
So that's the deal, and if you have any thoughts about that, feel free to text us. We're going to turn our attention, though, for the next handful of minutes to what we originally intended to talk about, which is the aftermath of the mass shooting in Lewiston, Maine, that, as you know, left 18 people dead. The perpetrator, 40-year-old Army reservist Robert Card, had made specific threats to commit a mass shooting in late summer. The Army Reserve warned a sheriff in Maine in September that Card had descended into severe mental illness. This is according to documents obtained by the Globe and other news organizations. His family also, this is his family, I believe it's his ex-wife and his 18-year-old son, had also told the sheriff's department in May that they were worried about his mental state and that he had amassed 10 to 15 guns. So the phone and text lines are open for us to attempt to process this new information. The number is 877-301-8970. I think it's fair to say, correct me if I'm wrong, Marjorie, it turns out that just about every local law enforcement agency knew that Card was a threat. And then other than a couple of what I would consider to be perfunctory wellness checks where they did not find him, they did absolutely nothing. Mm-hmm. So two questions, I guess. What's your reaction? And what do you think the reaction of the 18 families who lost someone they love and 13 families whose someone they love was injured, at least a couple of them critically? 877-301-8970.
Well, this is a pretty extreme case in terms of everyone seeming to know about it, the family seeming to know about it, the neighbors seem to know it, the Army reservists knew about it, and most importantly, law enforcement, the Sheriff's Department knew about it, and they did do these so-called wellness checks, two of them in September, but they never made any contact with Mr. Card. At one point, they went to his trailer and they heard him moving around inside. They saw his car outside there, but they didn't go in and contact and have contact with him. You don't know if that was going to make any difference. The sheriff's office did not try to take advantage of Maine's yellow flag law. Lots of states, including ours, have these red flag laws where you are able to take guns away from someone.
Which could be a family member or a member of the public, and that sort of yellow flag is only law enforcement getting involved, right?
Yes, but they didn't even try that, which it would allow the police to take away guns after having the person evaluated by a medical practitioner and then gotten approval from a judge. So they didn't try to do that, and they did send out something called this File 6 thing after they didn't reach Mr. Card on the particular day they went to do the September wellness check. And the File 6 was sent to every law enforcement agency in Maine. And the purpose of this is to instruct other law enforcement officers to keep an eye out for him, to tell the sheriff if they encounter him. It's kind of a...
But it's not at the level, from what I read, Marjorie, when you encounter him, figure out a way to grab him.
No, it is not. It is not to arrest him.
It's a level below that.
It's a level below that, but it's a little bit. It's a little bit scary when they're telling law enforcement to be careful if they encounter him. So, I don't know. They said they get a lot of these, which means we have a lot of mental health problems, I guess, in Maine.
Let me ask you: when you think that something is serious enough for a wellness check, which is not nearly, I'm not a law enforcement person, so I'm imitating Marjorie Egan, but it's true. I'm not a law enforcement person. If you think something is serious enough for a wellness check, which doesn't rise to what I think this should have risen to, and you don't make any contact, is your attitude, well, I tried twice, next, and you don't try again, you don't pursue it again? I mean, it is clear to me, and I think you made this point a second ago, something that is very rare in these mass shootings. Everybody in law enforcement who needed to know, and did virtually nothing to stop this guy. And I think it's, ordinarily I'm very careful about saying these kinds of things after a mass shooting, that these people didn't have to die. I think it's fair to say these people didn't have to die.
You know, I don't, I think the problem here, and this does not look good, needless to say, but I still think the problem here is the availability of guns.
Oh, I don't think
and that he
they're
was
not
able
mutually exclusive. Do you think they are?
Well, I think that because you look at a lot of these mass shootings, not everybody has a mental health problem, or if they do have a mental health problem, it's not known. And it's important to say almost nobody who has mental health problems goes out and does anything like this. But I think the issue is really not people being paranoid and hearing voices like this guy heard. Or the other thing that was weird in this case, the family members talked about how they were going to secure the guns that Mr. Card had because they were so...
And the cops said, fine, you go secure them?
There's an unanswered question here is, did the family try to secure the guns and failed, or did they secure the guns he had initially and then he went out and bought some more guns? Or
wait a second, and after the family told the cops, we'll take care of this, did the cops call them back and say, were you able to take care of this?
Well, if they did...
That's not a family's job as far as I'm concerned.
It's not, and if they did do that, we don't know about it at this point. But again, I think the issue is and remains the easy availability
why do you say
of guns.
why do you say they're exclusive? This is a situation where a guy made a specific threat to commit a mass shooting.
Because
a fellow reserve member reported to his higher-up. The higher-up reported it to law enforcement, and they did nothing.
I think you have much more faith than I do in the government to predict what's going to happen in very bad situations.
Maybe you're right.
And I think we see that all the time when it comes to children in the Department of Social Services. People don't think someone is going to do something
That's a very good point.
Until they do.
So before we get to your calls, and we'll do it in about 30 seconds, here is Maine Governor Janet Mills. I think it's fair to say totally dodging questions yesterday about prior knowledge about the Lewiston shooter, the prior knowledge that we just described to you. You'll hear a reporter, and then you'll hear Mills, and then you'll hear a terrific CNN reporter following up. Here it is.
But they did not share.
They meaning...
Governor, you really don't know what we're talking about?
Sir, I've answered the question.
Everyone here has one.
Sir, it's under investigation. Please don't argue with me, sir. Please don't. That's not what we do in Maine. We don't argue with people like this.
We know that there is an alarming concern from the law enforcement community that activity and information here was ignored. And the simple answer is, why was that done, and are you concerned about that?
I think those kinds of facts are yet to be determined. You're making assumptions. I'm not willing to make those assumptions.
Well, one, those facts were not yet to be determined. In fact, hours later, all this information came out. She obviously knew about it. And she said, we don't argue like that in Maine. The other thing you don't do in Maine is protect your people from others with weapons when you know they have weapons. I thought her performance was abysmal. And by the way, she's a Democrat, since we generally criticize Republicans for their abject lack of concern about the proliferation of gun ownership in this country. Again, she is a Democratic governor of the state of Maine where 18 people are dead. Marjorie thinks primarily because of guns. She's probably right. I would say a corollary is because law enforcement didn't do their jobs. Paige in Portland. Oh, Portland. You're first. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you so much.
Hi.
I have friends who were affected in Lewiston. My job was shut down for a few days. I think you have a fair point about guns in our country being way too available. And also I want to point out the growth in hate speech against Arab and Muslim people. I think there's a large Somali community in Lewiston, and we don't know if this had anything to do with the motives, but I think both our militarized colonial mindset and the growth in hate speech by the government and mainstream media against Palestinians, which then gets expanded out to Arab and Muslim people, really has affected this. So I wanted to provide.
By the way, whoa, Paige.
The actions of the
Paige, I'm
Palestinians-
sorry. You're going to have to put her on hold. I'll respond, and then if she wants to speak again, it's fine. We are in agreement about hate speech directed at Arabs and Muslims. There's zero evidence that Card's murderous behavior had anything to do with any of those things. So please don't conflate them unless you know something that we don't. Paige, thank you for your phone call.
What we know from reports today is that in January, February, he began to act extremely strangely. His brother told law enforcement that one of the reasons he began acting strangely, oddly enough, is that he got hearing aids. He'd been 20 years in the reservists.
Yeah, explain this. I never
Apparently
heard about
hearing
this.
lots of ammunition and gunshots and whatever else he heard that ruined his hearing. And apparently there is a known medical diagnosis of people suffering from mental illness after getting hearing aids. It's the first I've heard of it today. But in any case, that was when he began to act oddly, was in January, February of this year, and things got increasingly worse.
Had you ever heard of that before?
No, I'd never heard of that before.
Nor had I. 877-301-8970. By the way, while we intended to talk about what's going on in Maine, and we learned in the last 24 hours, apparently a bunch of you want to talk about what's going on in Gaza, particularly after this protest top of the show. It's fine. It's whatever moves you. Give us a buzz. 877-301-8970. Back in Brighton, someone's got to tell us where we're going, please, if you would. Not yet. Okay, well, thank you for that. 877-301-8970. Why are you so, I wouldn't say dismissive. You seem to not be troubled by
I'm very troubled.
the total lack of responsible action on the part of law enforcement in Maine.
I'm very troubled by it, but I guess I think that you know, mental illness, all these things are like side issues. I think the issue is that the issue to me is that this man could go out and get guns. Apparently, he was prohibited from getting a silencer. One gun dealer.
That's because of his own disclosure,
yes,
by the way.
His own disclosure that he'd been in a mental health facility. But that is my distress here, that you can go to a legitimate, federally licensed gun owner and have a lot of trouble in your past and still get a gun, or you can go to some place like they have up in New Hampshire and maybe in Maine too, and I know Maine as well as New Hampshire, and you can just get cash and get whatever you want, no matter what you've done the day before, whether you've beaten up your wife, whether you've shot somebody before. I mean, that's the issue to me. And obviously, mental health is a big problem. We have somebody who just texted, said, I have a relative who has many guns, more ammo than can be counted, unstable, threatening not only my family, but other family, town officials, and suicide many times. I have contacted law enforcement multiple times. They said they can't do anything until something happens. That's a texter. I don't know the situation, obviously,
No, but
of that texter.
This is different. Law enforcement did do something, but then gave up. This is not a situation where law enforcement, once notified, thought that no action was merited. What their action was grossly insufficient. This file 6, the 2 wellness checks, and that was it. They sort of done what they felt was necessary, and then they allowed this guy to go out and murder 18 people and shoot and injure another 13.
Well, again, I think the point is that it is extremely hard to commit people against their will, whether you're the cops or whether you're a judge or whether you're family members. I mean, I know we don't want people willy-nilly putting their people in mental hospitals, but I think we've gone too far in the other direction.
Forget. I'm not talking mental health. This yellow flag law that you described, which is narrower, as you said, than the red flag laws here and around the country, allows law enforcement to go do something based upon information they have. They chose not to do it. When you have a reservist saying, my fellow reservist threatened to shoot up a bunch of people, a mass shooting, whatever, a mass shooting is what he said, I would say that's a decent amount of evidence to go before a court and ask for his weapons to be taken away.
I agree with you. They should have gone in and talked to this guy. They could have had him evaluated by a medical practitioner, and they could have gone to a judge. They didn't, and that's true. They shouldn't have done that. But again, I think it's the guns easily available. But anyway, let's go to Leah in Cambridge.
Hi, Leah.
Hi, Leah.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Sure.
Hi, so I'm calling because I was watching the stream and I saw that it got disrupted, and then you asked people to call in if they wanted to talk about this. You mentioned that you felt that coverage at WGBH has been fair of Palestine, and I want to push back on that as a Palestinian American. I am a descendant of people who survived massacres in Lyd in 1947 and 1948, where, as you or your callers may or may not know, over 800,000 Palestinians were ethnically cleansed from what is now called the State of Israel. This ethnic cleansing is part of the structure of oppression that this ongoing genocide in Gaza is a part of. And I think that the coverage on just, civilians, women and children, all of this framing is actually deliberately misleading people.
Well, Leah, you said I made a representation on behalf of GBH, which I did not, because I don't listen to all the shows. I made a representation on behalf of what Marjorie and I and our colleagues are responsible for. I would say since October 7th, there has rarely been a day that we have not talked about the atrocities happening in Gaza. Maybe not with the depth and historical context we're talking about.
We did talk a lot
Charlie
about
Sennett,
that.
is that a historical context?
The so-called catastrophe, Leah, that you mentioned, where people were driven out of Palestine.
Right, that was a week ago Monday,
yeah,
right?
We talked about that. Yeah, we talked about the history of Hamas yesterday. Was it Monday? I guess it was Monday.
It was Monday yesterday, yeah.
Yeah, that was yesterday. And we talked about, maybe we're not doing a perfect job, but certainly we are not immune. I don't think anybody's immune to the horror of what Palestinian civilians are enduring now.
And I don't think we're ignoring it, and you're entitled to your opinion if you think we are, but we sure as hell don't think that's the case, or else we'd amend our behavior. Leah, though, thank you for your thoughts. We appreciate it. 877-301-8890. By the way, if you just tuned in, the reason Leah made that phone call, and there may be others in the next couple of minutes, which is perfectly fine, is after Marjorie started the show at at 11:06 this morning, there was a demonstration that I guess maybe 40 or 50 people who were talking about what the atrocities committed against innocent people in Gaza. And we had a cut from the live broadcast because we had no idea what was going to happen and didn't know if people in the library and our staff were safe. And if you want to call about that, it is perfectly fine. Where do you want to go?
Ellen in the car, thank you for calling.
Hey, Ellen.
Hi. Just kind of a serious comment. Last question. Even if the police caught up with the man in Lewiston, I doubt there was a lot they could do.
That's not true. That's not true. Under the yellow flag law, a court could take away all his weapons.
Oh, I didn't realize that was the case. I figured we've been so hamstrung on everything. And I just wanted to comment how
Sure.
they're in Supreme Court right now trying to get weapons back into the hands of domestic abusers.
We've talked about this. It's incredible.
So it's just they just, at every turn, they almost they arm everybody, and then anybody trying to make a solution or a safety issue and do the right thing is sort of, they're the ones who have to jump through hoops. It shouldn't be like that.
I could not
Ellen,
agree more.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because the day before this mass shooting, Angus King and Susan Collins voted in favor of a bill that would make it easier for veterans, which this gentleman, I'm not going to call him a gentleman, which this murderer card was, a veteran, or actually he has still been right in the Army Reserves right through the summer and I think the fall and maybe even the winter, but in any case, definitely a veteran, make it easier for veterans with mental health problems to get guns, because people wanted to take away guns from people that had mental health issues.
Those are the two senators from Maine.
And the senator from Connecticut who's been so involved,
Chris Murphy,
in the since Sandy Hook, said that is ridiculous. But Susan Collins and Angus King, I was stunned, both voted for it.
I'm so glad you also brought up the domestic violence thing. There's a case before the Supreme Court that we discussed with somebody a week or two ago, which essentially would say that laws removing or barring people who are subject to restraining orders from having weapons violates the Second Amendment to the Constitution. It is. You made a wonderful point there. It is not a wonderful trend, I should say.
Let's go to Mary in Milton. Thank you for calling.
Hi, Mary.
Hi, Jim and Marjorie. The point I want to make, I was a social worker for over 10 years on a psychiatric unit, and my understanding was that this man was on a psychiatric unit.
2 weeks.
He was.
So why was he released and then a call was made. He's at risk of harm to self or others, and now the police have to do something.
Well,
about
by the
it.
way, Mary,
These are
I had
kept
the
on
same. It was not an involuntary commitment. That is why he was sent, I believe is the verb that has been used, but it was not an involuntary commitment.
And you can walk out at any time,
Right.
Mary, as you probably know as a social worker, right?
And by the
You
way,
go in
how did-
yourself.
No. What I know as a social worker is if somebody is involuntarily, at least in Massachusetts, there's a thing called a 3-day notice, and if the doctor it's the doctor's ultimate decision, but we talk as a team about the situation, and if we decide that this person isn't safe to leave, then we have the court. The court comes into the hospital with the judge, and they decide whether this person can be committed for 6 months for further treatment.
Mary, you
That's
said
what should have been done in this case.
involuntary. You just said involuntary. This was a voluntary commitment. It's
I
different.
know, but a voluntary, it's not different. A voluntary commitment can be switched to an involuntary commitment if the person wants to leave and the team says, or the doctor ultimately, as the head of the team says, no, we don't think it's safe for you to leave. You either stay voluntarily or we're going to have the judge commit you involuntarily.
Well, my
There's a
understanding,
process where-
I hear you, and I didn't know that, but I could say it's clear, I guess, that wherever he was in the hospital for a couple of weeks does not have comparable laws, or if it did, they weren't used.
Again, Mary, and thank you for the call, but I think, I've covered too many stories in my life as a reporter where people were in mental hospitals and people thought they were okay to get out, and then a few days later, weeks later, they did something horrible to themselves or to somebody else. So maybe they thought this guy was in better shape than he was, or maybe he just walked out and they didn't think they needed to stop him. We don't know exactly what happened.
But Mary,
Hopefully
thanks
we'll
for
find that out too.
sharing your expertise.
And I guess that's
We
where I'm
appreciate
at on this.
What do you mean?
It is extremely difficult to make these decisions, and if you don't have readily available guns, you're not going to have to worry so much about people
I totally agree. If that would all be moot, but let me just end with this thing. If you were a law enforcement operation, a sheriff who was told by a leader of an Army Reserve unit that this guy has specifically threatened to commit a mass shooting, and by the way, he punched a fellow reservist in the face on the bus. I'm sure you read about that too. And you have his ex-wife and his son-in-law saying he has seriously declining mental health, and he just got 10 to 15 guns. Where, from his brother? Is that what it was, if I remember correctly?
Yeah, he took him out of his brother's house.
Out of his brother. Do you not think you'd go to court? And do you know, describe to me the law enforcement person who you know who would not go to court and at least ask a judge who has the final decision, not the cop, to take his guns away?
Again, I'm just going to go back to what I said before. There's too many times where people have done horrible things, beating someone to a pulp, done awful things. They're in jail for a couple of days, they come out, they do it again. They're in jail for a couple of days, they come out, they do it again. I just don't have the faith that you do in the...
I don't have faith, and I particularly don't have faith in Maine, where obviously they don't give a damn for the most part. One Democratic, one Republican United States Senator, a governor who was not only abrasive yesterday, but has resisted reasonable gun reform, who's a Democrat, and a Democratic congressman who gets celebrated when he flips after the shooting to support banning assault weapons. And his statement, and we discussed this the other day, seems to be, I didn't think it could happen here. Meaning it was fine if it happened elsewhere, as long as it didn't happen in Maine. But now that it's happened in Maine, I'm going to try to protect the American people.
I don't know. Maybe they have a grandiose idea of themselves in Maine. You heard the governor say, we don't argue in Maine. I think probably people do argue in Maine, but that wasn't her stand. But we're going to move on now, Jen.
We are.
Yes, we are. We're going to talk to the new mayor of Salem. Why today? Because it is Halloween, and Salem is Witch City, and it is a mob scene up there. We're going to find out all about it. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We're live at the Boston Public Library, streaming on Facebook.com/GBH News, YouTube.com/GBH News. November 14th. Is that right, Jim? Yes. 11 to noon. Ask the mayor. That's with Michelle Wu, the mayor of Boston. And I'm clarifying because we're about to be joined on Zoom by a different mayor, the new mayor, a new-ish mayor of Salem, Dominic Pangallo. Mayor Pangallo served as Kim Driscoll. She's now lieutenant governor, if you weren't paying attention, chief of staff when she was mayor. Mayor Pangallo, it's great to meet you. Thanks so much for your time.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween, too. So can you come out? Do you have to hide in your office all day long? Because every time I've heard this, like a total mob scene up there, 4,000 parking spaces, 100,000 people there, lines around the blocks. Biggest day of the year, huh?
Yeah, we're expecting a pretty sizable turnout today. I think Saturday of this past weekend was probably going to be our record number for this month, just because of the warm weather, the weekend.
Yeah.
But we're expecting a sizable number of people in town today.
So, Mayor Pangallo, we don't know you before this, but we've heard you're a very honest, decent guy, so I assume you'll be honest here. Were you at all tempted to rent your house for $6,000 and go to the Bahamas for the weekend like so many of the Salem residents have done? Tell the truth, Mayor.
No, I wasn't. I enjoy Halloween as much of a headache as it can be sometimes for us here. Mm-hmm. I enjoy the holiday. My kids enjoy it. And, it's a working holiday for me. It was when I was working for our last mayor as the chief of staff, and it is for me now, for sure.
What's up, by the way? What's the transition like? You've been a top-level staffer, not just for Kim Driscoll for a decade, but for other people in high places in government. What's it like being the person in charge, not the man behind the scenes kind of thing?
The pace is definitely more intense, but I feel fortunate that, I know most of the people already and the projects and the challenges facing the community. So I was able to step into the job with, I think, a pretty smooth transition and keep things moving forward for our community.
So what advice do you have today for people who are contemplating making the trip to the Mecca of Halloween, essentially? What do you say to them?
Sure. So, the first thing is, you've heard us say it before many times, and I'll say it again, every opportunity is come by train, come by ferry, come by bike, come by broom, don't come by car. Like you said, Marjorie, we have 4,000 parking spaces downtown, and on the average Saturday last year, we had 82,000 people. We don't have enough parking to accommodate everybody if they came by car, and you're going to spend a lot of time sitting in traffic, circulating the downtown looking for a parking space, when you could have just taken the train 30 minutes from Boston, hopped off and been right in the heart of our downtown with more time to enjoy our great city. So if you're planning to come today, plan to come by public transportation.
Yeah, or maybe if you're close enough, you can ride a bike, because I understand there's all sorts of money-making opportunities today up in Salem. I read this piece in the Wall Street Journal, Douglas Belkin, talking about how there's somebody out there, some kid who spent $300 on an 8-foot, is it Sasquatch? How do you say that?
Sasquatch, yeah.
Sasquatch costume. And he's made more than $1,000. I guess he charges tourists $1 or $2 to pose for a picture with him. And he's made $1,000 doing that. And the stores have got to be just raking in the Halloween paraphernalia today, too. And the restaurants, are there really lines around the corner so early in the day, Mayor?
Yeah, there's certainly lines at the downtown locations. I think we're hoping people will take a few minutes to walk a little further to the waterfront area, the Derby Street neighborhood and Pickering Wharf. There's some remarkable restaurants and retailers and shops and attractions down there that sometimes the foot traffic doesn't make it that far because everyone's so focused on being in the heart of our downtown, but it's all very walkable and there's a lot more to explore. I'd also add, if you're thinking about making a visit to Salem and you can reschedule your visit for another time of year, all these shops and restaurants and everything else, we're still here year-round. We're a 365-day city, absolutely. So
I didn't know that.
We have festivals and events all year round, so we'll still be here in November if you want to maybe skip the crowds but still enjoy the city.
Well, your predecessor and your former boss knows how we feel about the Peabody Essex Museum, which is open year-round. Do you used to work at the Peabody Essex?
I worked there for a little while doing public relations work for them.
One of the great museums anywhere, not just in Massachusetts. It's spectacular. Can we talk about another museum, Mayor? I'm sure you felt great consternation when you woke up the other day to find out that USA Today, it was mentioned in the Globe too by Billy Baker, I think yesterday, USA Today listed what they consider to be the worst tourist destinations in the world. And number 2, sadly, was the Salem Witch Museum, and we were thrilled that we knew you were coming so that you could mount a defense of a wildly popular destination in your town of Salem. So take it away, Mayor, if you would.
Yeah, so I read that USA Today article, and I questioned the methodology a little bit. I think that the way in which they did that analysis was somewhat flawed. I'll say that Salem has a variety of attractions, and if you're looking for pure history, if you're looking for an experience where you're hearing the stories of our history, there's lots of opportunities for that, and the Salem Witch Museum is one of those institutions that provides that. So it's a great value add to our community, and I hope people do take the time to explore it and the many other attractions that are here, not just related to our witchcraft history and the hysteria of the trials of 1692, but our maritime history, the architecture, the art, our connections to American literature and the founding of this nation. There's a lot of stories in Salem.
Okay, so Mayor, I don't know if you're aware that when your predecessor was mayor, that'd be Kim Driscoll, maybe once a year she would come on what used to be our Friday quiz.
And I remember it well.
Okay, and she would compete against then Mayor Joe Curtatone of Somerville, and I think, if I remember correctly, she beat him every single time. I think it was like 6 years in a row.
That's my recollection as well.
I believe that is correct. So what we decided to do, so you wouldn't feel cheated, is we came up with a bit of a Salem quiz for you. Are you game, Mayor? The answer is yes. Are you game?
Yes.
Yes,
absolutely.
you are. Margaret, why don't you ask the first question? It's a
Okay.
multiple choice, so it's not going to be.
Choice.
Go ahead.
Okay, here we go, Mr. Mayor. How many visitors came to Salem last year, that would be 2022, in the month of October? A, 250,000, B, 620,000, C, 125 million, no, 100.25 million, excuse me. That was
Yes.
a little overzealous on my part.
It was a little
Or
overzealous.
990,000 people. 25,000, 620,000, 1.25 million, or 990,000.
He looks nervous to me. Go ahead, Mayor.
990,000.
You are
Whoa.
correct.
Yeah.
Woo, that was very good.
That was very impressive.
Yeah.
Okay, you're not done, so don't think this is over with.
Okay.
Here's question
I was
two.
celebrating early. Okay.
Mayor, no, I know you're not leaving yet. You're ours. This is Mayor Pengallo, Dominic Pengallo. Since May, you won the special election. May, was that when you were elected?
The election was in May.
May, okay.
Yeah.
So relatively new mayor of the great city of Salem. The first pastor of the Puritan First Church of Salem, who was born in 1634, I'm sure you know, had what fitting last name? I'm going to give you four choices again, Mayor. Good luck to you. A, Samuel Gould. B, Samuel Webb. C, Samuel Skeleton. D, Samuel Warlock. Do you remember the four choices there, Mayor? Yes or no?
Can you repeat them again?
No, I cannot. Oh, actually, I will.
Okay.
Samuel
All
Gould, Samuel Webb, Samuel Skeleton, and Samuel.
This is a tough one.
It's not tough.
It is tough.
It is not
Very
tough.
tough.
Don't provide cover for the mayor. Go ahead.
Is it Samuel Webb?
That was a very good
That
guess.
is very.
We have a Webb Street in Salem, so
Yeah.
I thought
That was a
might
good guess. What's your second guess? Don't tell him.
Okay.
What's your
All right.
second guess? Skeleton, Ghoul, or Warlock?
None of these sound familiar to me at all. I'm going to go with Samuel Skeleton.
You are
Yeah.
correct.
Who would name themselves? Who would pick
They
the
didn't
last
name
name as
themselves.
Skeleton?
That is
I
it.
would never have guessed that, Mr.
Is it
Mayor.
skeleton?
It is skeleton. You are
Skeleton,
correct.
not skeleton, not like red skeleton. You're not
like
old
the
enough.
skeletons you're going to see on people's porches
Yeah.
today all over the place. But I'm with
Yeah.
you, Mayor. Who would ever guess skeleton, right? Would you have that?
By the way, the bad news, Mayor, since you got that wrong originally, there's a recall petition that has been started.
Wow, that was fast.
Good luck to you. Okay, we're talking to Dominic Pengallo, and sadly for him, we have a few more questions.
We do.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Okay.
Here's a good one.
Yeah.
Which of the following movies
Oh, this is
does
a good
not include a scene or many scenes shot in Salem? A, Hocus Pocus, that was in 1993. B, Good Will Hunting, that was in 1997. American Hustle in 2013, or Bride Wars in 2009. Which of these movies does not include scenes or one scene in Salem?
Good Will Hunting.
Excellent. That's a great
That was
one.
really good. Here's the last
Now,
one,
that was
Mayor.
kind of a South Boston kind of movie,
What?
was it not? That was kind of a South
Yeah, it
Boston,
was.
MIT kind
You
of
didn't
movie, as I
hesitate for a
recall.
second.
Yeah, or Cambridge, I guess, was in there too.
Whatever. Okay, so here is the final question for today's Salem quiz for the mayor of Salem on Halloween. How many babies in the U.S. were named Salem in 2022. And by the way, this is according to the highly accurate, totally believable website, nameberry.com. There are 4 choices, Mayor Pangallo. Just under 1,000, around 400, 1,626, or 700. That's 1,000, around 400, 1,626, or 700.
700.
No, sadly.
Good guess. You were close.
Try it again.
Is it 1,000?
Exactly, around 400. That's exactly correct, Mayor Pangallo. Thank you.
So
That was pretty good.
It was very good.
He did
Mayor
very well.
Pangallo, do you have to get dressed up when you're the mayor of Salem
Excellent
today? I don't
question.
see you. You're looking like you're in your regular sport coat.
Oh,
and
it's an
shirt.
orange shirt on.
Orange
what are
shirt
you
for
talking about?
Halloween.
My orange Halloween shirt.
Yeah, orange Halloween shirt. Do you have to go out
no,
dressed
so-
up?
I don't have to. I walked in the Haunted Happenings Parade at the start of the month dressed as the mayor of Halloween Town from Nightmare Before Christmas.
Oh, okay, that's a good one.
And usually with my kids, we'll do a family trick-or-treating costume. We haven't done that in the last year or two. But this year I'll be dressed as the mayor of Salem. It's a working holiday for me.
That's pretty scary for
And
a
I'm
lot of
wondering,
people, yeah.
What is it like to be a trick-or-treater in Salem? I mean, do you have to go to neighborhoods that are overrun by all these tourists? And do people have to spend hundreds of dollars on candy?
It depends on the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Where we live, it's not really overrun by tourists. Most of our residential neighborhoods are thankfully a little bit separated from the downtown,
Okay.
with a few exceptions. So where I live, we're able to trick or treat mostly with friends and neighbors.
Now, the other thing I wondered, I didn't know what you thought about this. The people that were complaining about the museum, the Witch Museum, which I went to, by the way.
We're done with them, by the way.
I kind of enjoyed the Witch Museum. Anyway, the people that were complaining about that, so what they really wanted up there in Salem was a life-size replica of the gallows on which they hung all these alleged witches back
That's
in the
a reasonable
1620s.
request.
What do you think of that?
Yeah, we have 2 really tasteful memorials in Salem, the Tricentennial Memorial and the Proctor's Ledger Memorial. So I think if you're looking for a place to kind of pay your respects and reflect on the legacy of 1692, those are probably the most appropriate places to do that.
Mayor Pangallo, it's hard when we're talking about Halloween. You've been a very good sport to talk about something as serious as the following. But we read this morning, we're reading about you. You're a Bates College graduate. Is that correct?
I am. Yeah.
Can you, for a second, obviously I assume everybody in America and everybody in our audience has learned, if they didn't know before, that's in Lewiston, Maine, the site of this atrocity from a week or so ago. What's your reflection on the horror that happened in the town you spent a decent chunk of your life in?
Yeah, it was absolutely heartbreaking. Lewiston's like a second hometown to me. Not only did I spend time there in college, but I have family in Maine. We spent a lot of time in Maine, and just reflecting on the tragedy of what happened up there, seeing the videos and the photos of familiar places and what happened was really devastating. I heard from a lot of fellow Bates alumni here in Salem who also kind of reached out to one another after it happened.
As an elected official, I know you're new to that part of the political game, but you've obviously been staffing politicians for a large part of your adult life. When you hear, even after something like that, leaders in both parties, Democrats and Republicans in Maine, continue to resist things like bans on assault weapons.
Or high-capacity magazines.
At least the senators say they support high-capacity magazine
Well, they haven't done a lot about it.
That's true. Well, what's your reaction? What do you think of that?
It's incredibly frustrating. I think mayors and many local leaders are there kind of on the ground dealing with these issues and these crises when they happen in their communities, whether it's schools or bowling alleys or churches or malls or wherever it's taking place. There's a path forward, and we need some stronger leadership at the federal level to recognize that these things are going to continue happening until they willing to take some bold action.
Amen. Mayor Pangallo, it's really good to meet you. I speak for Marjorie. We're both huge fans of your city. Good luck today, and we hope to see you again in the near future. Thanks so much.
Thanks very much. Happy Halloween.
Yeah, happy
Same to you,
Halloween
Dominic Pangallo.
to you too. Yes, we've been speaking with the mayor of Salem. He's got a busy day up there in Salem today, Dominic Pangallo. We thank him very much for joining us today. Pangallo served as Kim Driscoll's chief of staff when she was the mayor, and she's now, of course, lieutenant governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Thanks so much, Mayor, for being with us. We have a couple of minutes before we take our noon news break. I don't even know the answer to this question. We often talk about the trappings of Halloween on this show, namely we discussed on Friday how tall you can be, how old you can be. We're going to end the show with a really important topic,
Very
how people
important.
feel about candy corn and other. Are you a Halloween-esque? I don't even know this. Are you a Halloween person?
Well, I was when my kids were small. That's a big, exciting night, and there are certain streets in Brookline where all the kids go to, and you see all your neighbors and you see all your kids' friends from school. But now it's kind of boring because not that many people come to my house. I'm not on one of those popular Halloween streets, so I just sit in the stairs and go down and greet the little kids. When they come in, they're cute, and give them. I buy them candy that I like, so that when there's a lot left over, that I'll have.
Have
some
it
candy.
yourself?
Yeah. How about you?
Do you remember the days? By the way, well, I'll tell you. Am I a Halloween person? Do you know me?
I don't think you're.
Do you think I'm a Halloween person?
No, I don't.
When was the last time you dressed up? By the way.
When I was 12.
You were 12? Yeah. Well. By the way, did I ever tell you? Well, you've never asked me this. You know what my last outfit was? I think you do know this. Do you remember what my last Halloween outfit was?
I do not, Jim.
When I was in not single digits, but low double digits. And it was handmade by my mother, who could not even sew. Zorro. Do you remember Zorro?
Zorro. Well, you have an attachment.
Can you see me with the mask and the cape and the whatever kind of thing?
In a Zorro thing. And one year, my kid. This shows how uncreative I am. One year, one of my kids wanted to be a tooth fairy for Halloween, and I was stymied because you go to the Halloween
You
stores.
have a little wand and a tiara, whatever those are called.
No, if you're the tooth fairy, you need more than that.
What do you need?
And I remember somebody at the after-school program said to me, "What you do, Marjorie, you should go out and buy like 15 toothbrushes and sew them onto her costume."
And you did that?
Absolutely. I'm not very creative, but I do know how to sew, and I just sewed the 15 toothbrushes onto her Halloween costume, and she looked really good.
You know what my greatest memory, not that you've asked, but my greatest memory of Halloween was, which I assume is the best memory of almost every kid. What'd you do when you got your candy?
Went home and I threw it in the floor.
And separate. It's exactly what I was going to say.
And picked out the best.
You separated it by kind, and then you focused on the kind you liked. You decided if you were going to give away the stuff you didn't like.
You know what we talked about in past years? The parents that steal the candy overnight and eat it. The parents wait till the kids go to bed and eat all the candy.
You never did that?
They tell them about it. Well, I never did. I saved it for
You never did that?
I don't think so. Did you do that?
Oh, yes. Yes, and I did quite proudly.
So we're going to talk about Halloween. In a little while, we're going to do a Halloween expert, Jeff Belanger.
He's not just a Halloween expert.
He knows all about ghosts and paranormal sightings, and he's been to the Lizzie Borden house in my hometown, and he said he's heard footsteps there. He's going to tell us about that. He's going to tell us about walking in the catacombs in Paris and seeing ghosts.
His
He's
first
the man
ghost, I think.
who thinks that there are ghosts. He's going to tell us about that. At the end of the show, we're going to talk about your favorite candy for Halloween. Meanwhile, I think if people do want to go to Salem, as the mayor said, you better not try today unless you're going to walk or take the transportation.
Did you know the ferry was still operating until he said it?
I didn't know it.
There's a Boston to Salem ferry.
Do you know they got fireworks up there tonight?
They do?
Yep, they got fireworks.
Why don't we ask him about that?
Well, we forgot to ask him about that, Jim. You forget these kind of things. But anyway, they've got thousands of people up there. And, as I said, an opportunity to make a little cash. You don't have to be somebody who's got a house up there. You can rent it out. I mean, did I mention this kid made $1,000?
Sasquatch.
Posing with tourists. So
They're
you
very
can
entrepreneurial
you
in
get
Salem.
some wild outfit, go up there and ride your bike over there because you can't drive there now because there's no place to park, or take the T, public transportation, and stand there on the corner and charge people, $2 to take a picture with you. You might mic up pretty well by the end of the day.
One last thing, since we have one more minute here, I should ask this when Jeff Belanger is with us right after 12. We've heard 1,000 times, and we'll hear again right after noon, that, let me see if I got this right, your cousins own the house in Fall River that Lizzie Borden moved to. Is that correct?
After the murders.
After the murders.
Yeah, Maplecroft, not the murder house.
Okay, what's it called?
Maplecroft.
Okay, and did you ever, the thing I don't remember, did you ever go to the murder house?
I've been to no, actually.
Why not?
I don't know. I just never went there. But it became a bed and breakfast.
I know that.
For a while, and that's when people went. They would go stay overnight in the murder rooms and stuff like that. Yeah, I also want to mention the thing about Salem.
What
Apparently,
about?
They got thousands of porta potties. So if you do go to Salem,
what are you going to do otherwise?
Well, I mean, you might not know that. We don't have enough porta potties here in Boston where people visit all the time.
Can I tell you something?
Tons of porta potties up there. They also have a statue from the Bewitched, the TV show. Remember that? When
that woman,
in the 60s, it was Samantha was the witch.
What was her name?
I don't remember.
Elizabeth Montgomery. John, you
Thank
are
you very much,
incredible.
John, our
Parker.
producer, knows everything. Our engineer knows everything.
Can I say
John
something before we
Parker.
break?
What?
Let me be as extreme as I possibly can be, and I mean every word. If I was convinced that I was about to explode physically, and the choice was to either explode physically or use a porta potty in Salem, I would choose the explosion kind of thing.
Yeah.
I would really.
Well,
I would do that.
I hear they have very nice
Porta potties in
They have
Salem?
haunted
Yeah, I'm
porta
sure they
potties
do.
in Salem
Exactly.
in honor of Halloween. Anyway, we are done with this segment. After the new news, as I said before, we're going to delve deeper into local legends with paranormal researcher and host of New England Legends, Jeff Belanger. Can't wait to talk to him. You are listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming on Facebook.com/GBH News and YouTube.com/GBH News. I just want to mention on November 14th, 11 to 12, we're going to be joined here at the Boston Public Library by the Mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu. Welcome to Boston Public Radio. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming on Facebook.com/GBH News and YouTube.com/GBH News. The Mayor of Boston will be with us 11 to 12 on November 14th. That's Michelle Wu. I'm Marjorie Egan.
I'm Jim Brady. I would call that a total failure. We were well intended, let's face it, but it didn't quite materialize.
Well, I enjoyed it myself.
Oh my God.
And
We're joined now by a paranormal expert and a relatively odd guy, and I mean that in a loving way, Jeff Belanger. Jeff hosts the Emmy-nominated series New England Legends, co-host with Ray Auger, the New England Legends podcast. Jeff, it is wonderful to see you again. Welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be back with you both.
Yeah, it's great to see you too, and I'm so glad we can talk again about Fall River, which we talked to you about before, but I can never get enough of it. But before we get there, so tell people what it is that you do.
Oh, gosh. So I'm a writer and researcher of all things folklore, haunted, spooky, strange. I've been doing it for 25 years. My day job is I write in the show Ghost Adventures on Discovery. I write books. I do the podcast, as you mentioned, and I'm blessed that I get to do this as my full-time job.
By the way, the book, the latest, which we'll talk about for a couple seconds before you go, is The Fright Before Christmas, written by Jeff Belanger. I remember from having met you last year, I think it was, that your first ghostal experience was at some catacombs in Paris. Is that
That's right. That's
okay. But when did you get into this whole weirdness thing? Forget ghosts for a second. The whole weird thing that you do for a living. When did that start?
Well, childhood. I grew up in Sandy Hook, Connecticut, and yeah, that one. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. Okay.
So that was the town next to Monroe, Connecticut, which is where Ed and Lorraine Warren lived. If you've seen any of the Conjuring movies, it's all based on their work. But they were an influence when I was young. Historic area, lots of old homes, and I was just fascinated. And I went to school to be a writer and started writing for newspapers and magazines. And the Halloween feature story evolved into a website, evolved into books, evolved into a career I never would have planned.
So tell us briefly, because I'm not a believer, this alleged experience. I'm not saying you're making it up.
No,
I'm
it's
saying
fine.
it's your. Tell us about this thing in Paris in the catacombs. What happened to you there, Jeff?
I'm 30 meters below the city, surrounded by millions of human skeletons, completely alone.
Yeah.
And at one point, I saw a shadow come out from one side of the bones and go to the other and back again, and I froze. Because at that point, I'd interviewed hundreds of people about their ghost experiences. And like you, I hadn't had one yet. I just said, well, I believe that you believe, but I wasn't there. And in that moment, I said, I don't have another word for what it is that I just saw. And there were no side tunnels. I tried to rule it out. And it took days, weeks to fully sink in.
What did it look like exactly? Wait. What did it look like exactly?
It was not a lot of detail, but because it's dark down there, but it looked like a solidish, dark figure. And if I were closer and had light, maybe I could have seen features, but it looked like a man. It looked masculine, maybe a little shorter than me. And it was there, and then it was gone.
What do you think, Marjorie?
Okay, why were you there alone? If I was going to go to the catacombs,
question.
I would never go by myself.
Good
I'd have
follow-up.
7 other people at least.
This was in a whole other capacity, a whole other job. I was in Paris. We had one day to ourselves. My colleagues are like, I'm going to the Louvre. You want to come with us? And I said, I'd rather go underground, because that's how I roll. And so no one would go with me. I had no one else, and down I went.
So you're into spelunking too, or what's it doing?
How's it smell down there?
It's not so bad. This was the museum part. You can actually buy a ticket to go into. There's tons of other catacombs that you can break into, but this was the part you could get in legally.
Have you ever seen any ghosts?
No, I haven't, but I don't think it's so bizarre. I mean, lots of people who seem to be have their head on straight. I mean, I know Jeff does have a strange shirt on there. He's got the skeletons there and the bats on his shirt. It is, of course, Halloween, so I think it's the perfect day for it.
That's why we're Tuesday.
But, you know, I mean, lots of people claim to have seen them or they felt haunted houses. Now, I said I'm into Lizzie Borden, of course, because I come from Fall River, and my aunt lived in the house she moved to after the murders. But
Maplecroft.
But yes, which is one gorgeous house.
Yes.
But anyway, you talk about an experience in the actual murder house, which is on 2nd Street in Fall River. Tell us about that.
So it was, oh my gosh, this was probably around 2005, and it was the winter. They were closed for some renovations. There were 4 of us doing a live radio broadcast, and all 4 of us were down in the basement, and we heard scampering footsteps run across from the side door into the kitchen. And we went, oh no. We thought it was kids from Fall River just broke in. And we had the house for the night. We raced up the stairs, ready to call the police or manhandle them out, whatever. And there was no one there. And the door was locked just as we left it. And then 4 of us look at each other and say, well, that was weird. And I've been to that house many, many times over the years. Nothing like that has happened before or since. I get you're not going to make a horror movie out of that, right? I get Hollywood's not going to reach out to me and buy those rights, right? But it was strange, and I couldn't explain it.
So after all these years of looking into ghost stories and haunted houses, what do you think?
I can tell you exactly what a ghost is. A ghost is history demanding to be remembered. It's the past coming to the present for reasons that we may or may not fully understand at the time. It's not up to me what place is haunted or not. It's a community. It's a whole group of people that are saying, this still haunts us. Lizzie Borden, 2 people were murdered. No one was ever convicted for it. That haunts us, and it always will, as long as we keep pondering the idea that someone got away with murder.
She do it? I can't remember. She do it?
Yeah,
I know she was
I think
not.
she did it.
I think she did it.
Yeah, I think she did it.
Maybe
yeah.
with help, but yeah, she was heavily involved.
Who helped her?
Possibly the uncle.
They blame the Irish maid, Bridget. She got blamed a lot too.
You've been in that house, right?
You know something? I've never been in the murder house. I haven't.
It's not that big.
It's tiny.
And so Bridget allegedly was on the 3rd floor while the murder was happening, and didn't hear someone getting hacked to death 1 floor below. So I think at the very least she kept her silence.
Yeah, my theory is she was trying to kill her stepmother, and then when her father came home for lunch, she thought he'd be really ticked off that she'd killed the stepmother, so she had to kill him too.
And now you understand a haunting.
Exactly. There she is. So,
well, no, but you speculate, you ponder, you try to answer questions that are unanswerable.
It all the time. So that brings me to the other question: is how do houses get to be haunted? Like someone sees something and then they tell their friends, or what?
Right.
What's the deal?
Haunted is simply a reputation, right? One person has an experience, tells someone else finds it believable enough to internalize it, repeat it, and someone else maybe has an experience too. It helps if some sort of history left a mark in that building, like a murder, like something tragic, because we connect to that, and you can't help it. Anytime you go into a building, whether it's like a hospital or a museum or whatever, does it ever occur to you, like the people that were there before you? Like when you go to a Civil War site, when you go to a battle site, when you go in a historic ship, like the USS Salem or something, you're like, wow, what must have life have been like on this ship, in this place, doing what people did? And that's a connection to our past.
How come I haven't seen a ghost?
Jim, they don't like you. I'm here to tell you.
I think I'd probably be scared, which you sound like you were not. But putting aside the fear issue, why have I not seen a ghost, do you think?
Lots of people don't. You're not alone. Or maybe you've seen something and you didn't perceive it as such. Or, someone else, your threshold might be really high, whereas someone else's is much lower. And by the way, a ghost, like let's say one end of the spectrum is Abe Lincoln tipping his hat and saying, hi, Jim, right? And then the other end of the spectrum is like smelling grandma's perfume that you haven't smelled in ages and out of nowhere. Or just getting a sense of something, but you can't prove that. You can't photograph it.
You know,
that's one of the ones you hear a lot.
What's that?
That someone died. It could be a family member, mother, father, grandmother, or something. And then another member of the family thinks that they saw the person within hours or days of their death, or they heard them talking to them, or they, like you said, smelled the perfume. You hear that a lot. I've heard that a lot from friends.
Most of the experiences I hear about are personal, and they're closure experiences where, like you said, it's a loved one. And the biggest complaint we get all the time is like, it didn't get to say goodbye. Now, having experienced both, like losing someone close in the family to cancer, where you literally got to say goodbye, you're not supposed to say goodbye. Like, that's the natural order of things. It's supposed to be a surprise. But we want that so badly.
Yeah.
And we carry those people with us. I mean, even if you want to be metaphorical about it, the people who raised you, your neighbors, your family, your friends, like those all influenced who you are. And even if they're gone, you still carry pieces of them with you. And that is a literal connection to our past.
My grandmother on my father's side threw a frying pan in my head.
Yeah.
So when I was about 6, so I'm not that interested in connecting with her. But if it happens, it happens. Before we talk about more fabulous, weird happenings in Massachusetts that you know more about than practically anybody, last year when you were on, we got more feedback on one particular ghost experience that dwarfed all the others. You have any idea what it was?
No, I don't
I'm going to tell you
remember.
what it was. I'll give you a hint. It was out of Gainesville, Texas. Does that remind you of anything?
Was this Sex with a Ghost?
That was exactly. It was the horniest haunting ever. And apparently, according to this Linda Hill, who was the landlord, this property, rental property, was filled with ghosts who want to, quote, freak you all night long.
Right.
I can't remember. What was your position on this freaking all night long ghost kind of thing?
So my position was that the media tends to cover this stuff in one of two ways.
Yeah.
Either objectively, where we say, hey, there's a story here, people are experiencing things, let's talk about it. Or you completely take an angle and make fun of it and find the most ludicrous thing you can. Just like when you see political shows and people go to a rally and interview the dumbest people at the rally to prove their point. So that's the dumbest person at the rally to prove your point.
What I did, I was inspired by you, by the
sure.
way, Jeff Belanger, who's the author of the new book, The Fright Before Christmas. I was inspired by you to do what I believe to be an accurate reading of the ghosts who were, quote, freaking people all night long.
Right.
Here's a short version of what I did last year. Oh, baby, yeah. Yeah, I like it like that. Now, does that sound ghost-like to you? Be honest. You can be you're totally honest. Go ahead.
No, however,
Yeah.
number one, you're welcome.
You're right. No, I do.
Because I hear from Zoe that this clip has had some
huge.
legs.
Sadly, it's had a lot of legs.
Yeah.
Several legs.
Jim has saved
anyway.
it.
I'm here for my victory lap, I
Fine.
guess.
Okay, so forget the ghosts are going to freak you all night long. Can you describe the story of this so-called old coot from Mount Greylock? I actually love it. This one haunts me.
Yeah.
Fill in the blanks.
So the old coot of Mount Greylock is a story that dates back to the Civil War, and it's as so many did. A husband and father goes off to fight, and it's hard for us to relate today, where we get texts and instant communication all the time. But weeks can go by with no letters or anything. And the man, William Saunders, allegedly just sort of disappeared. Whether he was killed in action was unknown. And then years later, he sort of wanders back home and finds that his family had moved on. That there's a new husband, the kids are calling him dad, and so he looks nothing like himself. He's a shell, and he builds a little shack in the woods and just sort of hovers. And then eventually he's found dead in his shack, and he becomes the ghost that haunts the mountain, the old coot. And in fact, there was a photograph that was taken years later. It was the North Adams transcript. The photograph may or may not be accurate. It might have been a fake. There's a lot of speculation about that. But the story connects us to a time when that was plausible, when you really could, get hurt in battle, you could lose your way and come home, and how tragic that your whole life has moved on without you.
What I think I also read about this, to make it even weirder and somethinger than it was, is that not only did the guy come home to find out that his wife married somebody else, and somebody else is being called daddy by his kids kind of thing, and he builds the little whatever on the mountain on Mount Greylock, obviously, or else it wouldn't be the old coot of Mount Greylock. But then he apparently is so scarred physically that he ends up doing odd jobs or something at the house and sits down and has dinner with his former wife and kids and the other guy thing, and no one, is that like, what's the deal with that?
So in folklore, the more times you tell a story, it gets changed.
I hope so.
Over time, right? And so these are additions, I would imagine, to the basis of the story. And not only that, we can't even prove this anyway. We can't prove it at all. It's a legend that just sort of hovers around there. Bellows Pipe Trail specifically is where he's said to haunt. It was a ski area for a little while.
Yeah.
And so it's a connection. So yeah, each time you tell it, someone adds a little bit to it.
So if you let's talk about you for a second.
Sure.
Who knows more? Like, if you suffered a similar fate to William Saunders, would you go back and have dinner at your house with your ex-wife and her new husband and your kids?
No.
You wouldn't do
probably
that.
not.
No, I think I'd barge in and say it's
I'm home.
here's
Yeah.
Johnny, right?
That's right. It's Shining. That was like a haunted house.
Make an entrance. Right.
Exactly.
Here's from a texter. Every member of my family has had an experience in our house in Topsfield with an entity we now believe to have been the spirit of the woman who lived in the house in the 1800s, Frederica. She was always felt strongest in bathrooms. My parents kept old records. It's not Zoe. It's not a texter. It's Zoe, our producer. Okay,
It is?
Here we go. Yep. She was always felt strongest in bathrooms. My parents found old records, a newspaper article they kept in the piano bench about how she resisted indoor plumbing until the town forced her to put it in. She died in that house. Maybe that's why they felt her strongest in the bathrooms. She died in that house when she was around 100 years old.
Wow.
So
what do you
every
make of that?
member of the family has had an experience. And Zoe is over there somewhere here. She doesn't
Whoever
look,
she
doesn't
is.
look like she's lost her marbles.
No,
No.
These are stories that get passed around, and I think that in this case, connecting her to her own family and their own background. There was a time there wasn't indoor plumbing. People don't like change. They resist all kinds of stuff. I lived for a few years as a young person in the middle of Pennsylvania in Amish country. And I remember we'd get stuck behind horse and buggies, and I was like, wow, these people are so different. But think about it. There was a time when they weren't. They just hit a wall and said, this is where we stop. Any new technology from here on out, right? We're sticking with what we got, the hooks and the black and the white.
I've been looking for somebody like you who's lived there for years. How do the Amish have sex? Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
What do they do exactly?
So I'm not proud of this. We can edit this out, right?
Okay.
No, I think this is actually what people want to hear.
I
Go
worked
ahead.
on a show called Amish Hauntings.
You did not.
I swear, I was on Destination America. We had over 12 viewers. I'm telling you right now, which is why it didn't last long. But I heard about some of the Amish background. There were legends about having premarital sex in the Amish community. However, they would allow you to bed down with your people you were courting. They would just put a piece of wood between the two, which obviously would stop any two.
That limits you, it does.
I mean, you'd have to go all the way over that piece of wood. But secretly in the Amish community, they want you to have premarital sex. They want you to get pregnant because then you're much less likely to leave the community because you're going to need them in order to stay in there. Did you say that on your show? Because if you had, I think you probably would have had more than 12 viewers. We weren't the most highbrow show. You weren't? Well, nor are we. It's long gone. It's long gone.
Okay, we're talking to Jeff Belanger all about Halloween scariness and hauntings and ghosts and all that kind of stuff.
Can I ask something before you pick another example you want to describe? If I do want to see it, I mean this sincerely.
Yeah, sure.
I do want to see a ghost.
Yeah.
So tell me what I should do that would increase the likelihood that I bump into a ghost somewhere. What do I do?
I mean, if I knew the rules, I swear I'd share it.
Well, give me some guidance.
So, I mean, I think starting by going to a place that calls to you in some way, whether maybe you're into battle sites, maybe you're into historic places.
I'm mostly into Jewish delicatessen. So,
my goodness.
Does that help at all? Or
that you make it super easy.
Okay.
My goodness. Yeah, I mean, first of all, every place has a past. There's stuff that happened before, and you put yourself into that element. Hopefully it's dark and quiet. Not too many people, and you just walk around open-minded and see what you feel. Sometimes it's a feeling, and you can explain it away. I've been in places where I've just like, wow, I really feel like I'm not alone in this room. Take it or leave it, right? Maybe my mind was playing tricks on me. Maybe I was getting caught up in the fear of being in a creepy old place. Or maybe, just maybe, I was feeling something. When you walk into a regular room and you're alone and you're looking at the wall and someone else walks in, or a living person, you sense that, right? That's normal. We're human beings. You turn around and you go, oh, well, it's Marjorie just walked in. But sometimes that happens and no one's there.
I think there were the Lox and Bagel murders in Brooklyn.
They were.
Go back down there and hang around and see what happens.
Exactly.
Tell us about the Bridgewater Triangle. This one really gets me going.
So the Bridgewater Triangle is, first of all, it was coined in the 1980s by Lauren Coleman, who's an author that discovered that there's an unusually amount of weird stuff in this area.
Murders.
That's about 220 square miles. It's just north of Fall River, Abington, Freetown,
it is?
Bridgewater.
Yes.
Bridgewater as in Massachusetts?
That's right.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. I missed this. Go ahead. All right, go ahead.
You've got the Carl Drew murders, the
Carl
satanic
Drew,
the
he was
satanic
from Fall
cults.
River.
He was?
Yeah.
And
maybe he killed the Bordens. Go ahead.
This is more recently, Jim.
The
Okay, go ahead.
timeline's off,
Okay,
but
it's fine.
UFO sightings, Bigfoot sightings, and then haunted places. There's just a lot of weirdness. And I get what happened is Lauren Coleman started this thing, and then we worked on this documentary. I was just one of the people interviewed in it. But then it became a bigger and bigger thing. And once someone says this is a thing, suddenly everybody's looking, and then more and more stories come out. I think that the basis of the whole thing is basically the King Philip's War, which is America's forgotten war. Nobody, I mean, we know it because of where we live.
That's right.
But
Speak for yourself. What was it?
A lot,
I'm
very
serious.
bloody. Hundreds
What was the King
killed.
Philip's War?
Between the Brits and the United States.
It
and
was
the Indians,
the British
and Native
and the
Americans.
Native Americans. So it was the bloodiest conflict in all of British or American history to date, even today, per capita. 75 to 80% of the native population wiped out, 20 to 25% of the colonial population wiped out.
Oh my God.
This was the big push. And the reason we don't talk about it is because it destroys the Thanksgiving story. Right, so Thanksgiving 1620, we've got this wonderful meal and all this kumbaya, and then a couple decades later, it was genocide.
So wait a second. What is part of other than Bridgewater, what is the rest of the Bridgewater Triangle?
Oh, there's so many, so Route 44, you've got Anawan Rock, which is where the surrender happened, where the official surrender occurred. And it's a historic site, and there's just this little sign off the side of the road, and it's a war that, I mean, no one learns about unless you sort of grew up in this region.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a stain that haunts us. And if you know even a little bit about it, right? I mean, there's King Philip's High School. So if King Philip's was the enemy, we named a high school after an enemy? Or what are we doing? I mean, we're still grappling with what happened.
But I would think that a place like that where all these people were killed, the Native Americans and the colonists.
Yeah.
What about places like Gettysburg?
Oh, so one of the things I think Gettysburg, all of America, because we're so divided right now, if you've watched the news
We've noticed that.
or the internet. So this is where I think ghosts can help us. If we could get all of America to go to Gettysburg, where there's been nothing since the battle, right? As President Lincoln said in his address, "We cannot hollow this ground. It's been done far beyond our ability." And I imagine all the ghosts of all the Confederate and all the Union, 40,000 plus dead, missing, or wounded in 3 days, July of 1863, rising from the ground and looking at us and saying, "Oh, is America divided, Cupcake? Aw, you guys fighting on the internet?" Like, that's what divided looks like.
This is an incredible coincidence. You mentioned Gettysburg. You heard last night Trump did this beautiful speech about Gettysburg and how it was the pivotal battle in World War II. And it was very moving. So before you go, it's really sad. We only see you on Halloween. It just occurred to me. What's that about?
Well, you're going to have to talk to your producers.
I don't
I think
talk
it's
to our
come back for
producers.
Christmas because we have the Christmas hauntings
Okay, so wait
as well.
a second. The book is The Fright Before Christmas.
Right.
What is this thing?
It's a
What is
book.
it?
It's a book,
No, I know
Jim.
it's a
You're
book.
holding
I'm
it.
holding it. It's a book, yeah.
So
It's a blurb from Santa Claus. Did
Not
you know
bad.
that?
Yeah.
It's incredible.
I had some pull there.
I bet you did.
Yeah.
What's it about?
So it turns out Halloween is only the second most frightening holiday. Hands down, bar none, Christmas
is
long before we called it Christmas. It was the winter solstice. It's the shortest day. It's the longest night. It's the time of oncoming winter. We hold festivals and feasts because we have to give each other gifts and get each other through this desperate
Haven't you
time.
heard of Scrooge, Christmas past ghosts, Christmas present ghosts,
Which
all the
helped
ghosts?
define what this holiday
So
is.
what do you say in the book? You lay out how frightening it is?
Well, so there's so many monsters from various countries' folklore, like Krampus from Germany and Austria, and Belschnickel and Grilla from Iceland. These monsters that literally come out. We tell our children about them because they're going to come and kill you. Like, ghosts scare you at Halloween, but at Christmas you could die.
Wow. So we will have you back. Are you aware of the fact that for 4 straight Christmases I gave Marjorie an Eton emergency crank radio? Did you know that? 4 years in a row.
What's that got to do with anything?
It's a fright before Christmas.
Oh, a fright before Christmas.
That's
okay.
we're talking about the
so
book.
I just want to know what is your Halloween routine as a ghost expert? Do you do something special today?
This is my last gig. I'm
Yeah.
heading home after this. I got to put out the strobe machines, the fog lights, the fog machines, the strobe lights, the full-size candy bars, and by sundown I will be ready to hand it all out.
Full-size candy bars. It's
Darn
very
right.
generous of you.
Yeah.
Jeff, it's great to see you. We will see you before Christmas.
Yeah,
We're
love
into
to.
this. Fine.
Yeah.
Jeff Belanger, thank you so much.
Thank
we appreciate
you.
it.
We've been speaking with Jeff Belanger. He hosts the Emmy-nominated series New England Legends and co-hosts with Ray Auger the New England Legends podcast, which is terrific. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good to see you, Jeff.
Up next, we're going to talk to 2 chefs from a national list of best new restaurants. Rubato in Quincy and Moeka in Cambridge. Yes, Jim, they brought you some food. You're listening to Boston
Thank
Public
you,
Radio,
too.
89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming on Facebook.com/GBH News and YouTube.com/GBH News.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marge Regan. We're live at the library, streaming at Facebook.com/GBH News and YouTube.com/GBH News. November 14th, whenever that is, 11 to 12, Mayor Wu will join us for an hour of Ask the Mayor. So last month, Bon Appetit magazine released their list of the best new restaurants in America for 2023. with the greater Boston food scene represented by not one, but two relatively new restaurants. They'd be Quincy's Rubato, a modern Hong Kong-style cafe with dishes like fried chicken bolo, French toast with lava egg yolk, and Cambridge's Moeka. It's a locally sourced, sustainable seafood joint with menu highlights that include Cape Cod scallops and semolina gnocchi. Joining us now is Rubato chef and owner, Lawrence Louie. Lawrence, it's great to have you here. Congratulations.
Welcome.
And the co-owner with his wife, and, well, you're not really the chef there, but you are the co-owner, correct, of Moeka. Is that correct, Michael, or no?
I am the chef owner, so I kind of oversee both Julia and Moeka, and Brian Gianpaolo is our chef de cuisine, taking care of the kitchen. Yeah.
Pagliarini is Michael's last name. Congratulations to you, too. It's fabulous. Great to see you both.
So we've been reading, and it makes me very hungry. I'm glad you brought some food about both your places. Starting with you, Lawrence, tell us what's going on over there in Quincy.
Yeah. Well, we're a modern Hong Kong cafe. We opened last year. And this is my first restaurant. Me and my wife moved back from London about 2 years ago to open this. And this was a place that my mom had operated in as this old school Cantonese bakery for 22 years before we took over.
And tell us about lava egg yolk and your special French toast.
Yeah.
Give us some descriptions.
Yeah, well, I'll do you one better. I have it here.
Fabulous.
Oh, good.
Essentially, it's a Hong Kong style French toast. So it's I think Hong Kong diners and cuisine is really, this meeting of East and West. And so this is a French toast. So the classic is peanut butter, milk bread, deep fried, and then there's condensed milk and butter over it. So we do a version of that. Inside is a molten salted duck egg custard with some condensed milk and some little caramelized cookie tops.
Lawrence, before we talk to Michael about his newest restaurant, for those, I don't travel well, and most people think Quincy's like another planet. Quincy is becoming a huge culinary spot, is it not? Particularly for Asian food, but not just Asian food, yes?
Yeah. It's I mean, I always tell people, I think it's intimidating. It's Quincy, it's, South Shore, it sounds far.
Miles away.
But it's Dorchester plus one bridge.
That's right.
And we're right there.
Exactly.
So it's not too far. And yeah, I mean, I think we're pretty accessible. It's the food there. I think it's it's not seen as much, but the Chinese food there is really good.
Fabulous. We're going to try the French toast in a second, but I want to talk to Michael Pagliarini for a second. First of all, if you know Michael's name, because Julia is not only a spectacular restaurant, about 100 yards away. Is that roughly 100 yards away?
Yeah, back door to back door is about 100 steps.
Is that really true?
Yeah.
So you do the back door? Oh, I love that.
There's a back alleyway, so you can go kitchen to kitchen and run for the ingredients that you forgot to order.
I love that. And by the way, we don't even need to publicize that because no one can ever get in. So you really don't matter.
That's not true.
Is that not true?
We run a wait list at the bar every night at Julia.
Do?
So we don't take reservations, and that's a third of our seats.
By the way, that's fabulous too. Tell us a little bit about Moeka, which opened mid-year. When did Moeka open?
It opened, it was a year ago in August, this past summer, so we're just over a year old.
I was there the first month, thank you very much. And tell us about it, for those who haven't been there yet.
Well, I'm glad you called it a seafood joint because it has that neighborhood appeal.
It does.
That spot used to be Chez Henri and
Shepherd.
And Shepherd and Luce, and I love places that have an important connection to their neighborhood. It is a fantastic bar because a lot of great cocktails were introduced to the Boston bar community through that bar scene when it was Chez Henri. And we wanted to make sure that this was an exciting place to go for good cocktails. But we've been in that neighborhood for almost 11 years now with Julia, and I've always wanted a seafood spot there.
And what's this whole deal with, you have a special kind of relationship with the fishermen and sustainability. Fill in some of those blanks there.
You have to have conversations, and we started to have excellent conversations with our farmers at Julia. Not just about what's available or what's seasonal, but it's like, how does your business work? You're a small business, we're a small business, and we have to make this work for each other, right? It's not a linear kind of like, I'm just going to take the best of what's on your list and use it at my restaurant and try to get it before everybody else. I'm going to see what's in season, what's in abundance, and then we're going to try to make our menu work based on what's available. We're going to challenge ourselves to cook with those twists and turns.
Are you and your wife nervous? I thought Chez Henri was great. I thought Shepherd
was.
was great. I don't know if it was ever Luce. Is that how you pronounce it?
I think it was they
Whatever.
pronounced Luce. Yeah.
Okay, Luce. Do you not get nervous going into a space where you're? I'm serious. It's a great location, I think, right outside Harvard Square. Do you not get nervous being in a place where 3 prior businesses sort of disappeared?
Yeah, I mean, I am able to look forward. I don't know what it is about me and my sort of entrepreneurial drive.
Yeah.
But I respect it and I embrace it. So if someone comes in and say, "Oh, I had a wonderful dinner here at the bar when it was Chez Henri," you know what? I love Paul. I love the fact that it's our turn now. And this wasn't a hostile takeover. This was a natural evolution. Right?
I didn't think it was a hostile takeover. We're talking. Oh, you're going to say. Go ahead.
Lawrence Louis of Rubato in Quincy and Michael Pagliarini of Moeca in Cambridge. Lawrence, you've just been named, and you both have been named to Bon Appetit's Best New Restaurants. But you're a smaller place. Well, you're not a huge place either.
Well,
I mean, I wonder, can anybody get in the door? Does it change your business, or can people still manage to get in there when you are named Best New Restaurant by Bon Appetit?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't sure what to expect. This is our, I think first big accolade that, we were put on, but it's the first 2 weeks, I don't know if it was the same for you, Mike, but the first 2 weeks was absolute craziness. It was like, we didn't think we were doing like double the sales that we were doing before. But it's calmed down a bit, and we're grateful to be on that list and everything. But I think, for us, the regulars are the most important. I think we make sure we carve out space and time for them.
Yeah. And do they call you
Wait,
and tell you?
Michael, you want to say something
No,
about that?
that's absolutely right. Yeah. You see a bump, and there's a curiosity, but at the end of the day, that bubble goes away, and your neighbors are there.
Right.
And
so
how do you
right.
find out? Do they call you so you're ready for the onslaught, or you just find out from somebody who saw it online, and then all of a sudden it's a mob scene?
It's definitely prepared. I think months in advance they reached out to us.
They do. Okay.
They were fairly secretive about it. I don't know how much I should say, but they were fairly secretive about it in the beginning, and they're just kind of like, hey, we want to feature some recipes.
What do you mean? I don't know how much I can say. Say what you weren't going to say. What weren't you going to say? What are you talking about?
They reach out to you and
they told you in advance, say shut up, is that kind of thing?
Well,
it's like on Jeopardy kind of thing.
Yeah. You can't.
Can you just hand us the French toast while you're talking? Enough of this already.
Yes.
Describe exactly what we're eating.
Yeah. Well, I got one for everyone here.
Great.
Everyone gets their own. I'll give you a knife and fork with it.
Thank you. And what is it again?
So essentially, it's we make our own bread in-house, and we cut that into 3 slices. We put a molten duck egg custard inside of it, and we deep fry it. And so you have on the side, here, let me give you some over here.
Thank you. Oops.
Oh, I can't go that far.
You can hand it.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. So there's 2 little things on the side, and so you're gonna pour the condensed milk on top.
Should I start eating this?
Okay.
Milk, and then the cookie crumbs go on top of that. And this is kind of our version of classic kind of, Cantonese and Hong Kong desserts.
By the way, this is not your typical Chinese takeout kind of thing, Asian takeout.
Definitely not,
Okay, so we're going to allow Michael to be the first reviewer of the French host, but I have 2 questions for you in the meantime. First one is a quiz. We're going to play you a little music, Lawrence, and you're going to tell us who is playing this music. Is that all right? Just for fun, okay?
I love it already.
Here it is. Play it. Can you play it?
He knows.
Well, I want to hear a little more. Okay, who is that band and who is the lead singer, please?
That is Contempo.
That is correct.
Of Quincy, Massachusetts.
Yes, and?
The lead singer is...
What was her name?
My guess...
Go ahead, guess.
Is... Young.
No.
No?
It's your mother.
That's my mom. That's not my mom.
It is your mother.
That's not my mom.
Yes, it is your mother.
That's not my mom.
Wasn't your mother the lead singer in the band?
No, she was the lead. She was the band leader, but she
band
plays
leader.
keys.
That's close enough.
She plays keys.
So she was in a rock band while she's running a bakery, and
she still is. Yeah, they practice downstairs.
Oh my God! So what do you think of this, Michael? What do you think of the French shows? Tell the truth.
It's spectacular.
It is spectacular.
What's spectacular about it? Flesh it out a little bit.
Well, you told us what was on the inside, but this is the type of thing where if you order it, it's a surprise, and that element of surprise is really cool because it's kind of liquid center, rich and creamy. This is like, I'm ready for an espresso. Is there an espresso?
Oh, there is. They do have espresso right over there. Yeah, they do.
I have a second question for you before we get to Michael and the food he brought. Spam. You serve Spam, yeah?
Love Spam, yeah.
Okay, you do?
Love it,
You
yeah.
ever been to the Spam Museum in Minnesota?
I have not.
Why not? Why not?
Never been to Minnesota.
Museum in Minnesota.
So our
Possibly being
understanding
there.
is it's a national food of Hawaii or some such thing. It's huge in Minnesota. Describe Spam for the uninitiated. We know it comes in a can.
Yeah,
but tell us more.
Spam is like it's like a working class pate. That's what I'll call it.
Oh my God.
It's like it's delicious. It's salty. It's meat of different kinds, I think.
Yeah, I'd say
even-
so. What do you mean you think?
You think?
Yeah.
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 It's like odd. And what do you
Love
put
that.
Spam in there, Lawrence?
We do it between our bolo baos, which is one of our signature things. It's
Yeah.
essentially we make our bread in house. We have a little cookie top on this like kind of
That was like a
brioche
dumpling
bun.
for those who, right? I mean,
It's like a
dumpling.
It's like a I mean it's like a not as much like a dumpling, more like a
sandwich thing.
Yeah, it's a sandwich.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So we do Spam egg and a Kraft single.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay. So have you ever eaten Spam, Michael over there? Tell the truth.
I've never eaten Spam.
Would you eat Spam if it was offered to you?
Absolutely.
You
yeah.
would really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I go right after it. Yeah.
Okay. So what did you bring with you? And we're going to have Lawrence review your selections
okay. Oh,
too.
lovely.
So, what'd you bring? What are we eating?
I have a smoked trout and cucumber rillette.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Could I pass one over to you?
You can.
Certainly. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very
and I'll
much.
take it over here. Lawrence, could you start eating it so we
Absolutely.
can review, please, in a couple of... Hey, Michael, starting with you, since Lawrence is going to be eating, we have spoken to zillions of your colleagues about what a nightmare it is keeping and retaining staff in the wake of this 3-year COVID nightmare. How are you? I mean, you got 2 places now. How are you dealing with that?
I'm really happy to report that we're on an upswing, so knock on wood. We've just made a couple really good hires, so I'm very excited, but being completely honest, the last year has been brutal.
Why? Describe a little for us.
It's like you feel like you're, well, so let's take our kitchen is 5 people cooking at night, so even if you lose 1 person, you're down 20%. And very often you're looking at a week where you're not even sure how you're going to staff tomorrow. And it's gut-wrenching. You're like, and then what happens is it puts more pressure on your top-tier people. I've been at the restaurant every day I took 3 days off this year to be with my dad and my brothers.
Wow.
That's 6 services a week, and I've not been away from the restaurant.
Because of this? Because of staffing issues?
Because of this. And you get a little extra bump in business, and you're trying to be grateful for this strong emergence from the pandemic, and you're like, you just got to keep going.
And I assume while staff concerns are on the negative side, the plus side, which creates greater stress, is the pent-up desire to eat out, and not just because of COVID, but I assume because, at least in my life, the worse the world is, the more I want to go to a great restaurant and have a great meal because it provides some break from the pain. Is that your experience or no?
Well, it is, and I'm glad you framed it like that, because what we all learned during the pandemic was that restaurants are essential parts of neighborhoods, and you don't realize what you've got until you can't go there anymore, and you're missing it.
That is very true.
So that pent-up demand is real, and people are out, and they're out in big groups, and they're celebrating, and there's a real resurgence there.
So what about the smoked trout there, Lawrence, Louis?
I love it. I think it's phenomenal.
Why is it phenomenal, please?
It's the saltiness and the smokiness on that bread is really good. The texture from the cucumbers, amazing. Freshness from I think that's dill in there.
Yeah.
It's really good. I mean, I could eat many of these.
You know, we hear, Lawrence, that liquor is the big is where you make your money in the restaurant business because the profits are so narrow.
Mm-hmm.
But you're running a cafe, so you can't serve liquor. So that would seem to me to make things even more stressful.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I think how we designed our business model was to do breakfast and lunch. It's kind of like a chef's dream to be able to open a restaurant and be like, okay, I'm not going to do dinner. We'll do quick service. We're going to close at 4 p.m. every day. But yeah, I mean, I think we figured it out. I think we figured it out.
So how do you know that? Do you have to go to business school to know how to run a restaurant?
No.
No?
No, definitely not.
How'd you know how to do it?
I think you got to pay your dues. You got to, I've worked in restaurants for the last 10 years. And I think you learn a lot as you go. And then I think it's about feeling out your gut and making the right decisions when things feel right and when things don't feel right. And kind of listening to the people around you that care about you and want you to succeed.
I love you saying you go to business school. I met you briefly. The great Tracy Chang from Pagu had these convening things, and she had a great AAPI thing, and you were one of the chefs. And I was talking to Tracy about you last night, and forget business school. You were an organizer with the Chinese Progressive Association.
Yeah.
How do you explain that line from that to this?
Yeah. A lot of people ask about that, and I think it's actually, to me, it makes a lot more sense because organizing is about people. It's about community. It's about bringing people together, and it's about connecting and working with people, and I think uplifting people. And I think for me, growing up Chinese American, food was one of the center points of all that. And I think, from organizing to kind of, trying to push communities forward and fight for political power and all that, I think food just was always at the center of everything. So I think, the more I was doing it, the more, I fell in love with the food and the art of that and kind of kept going with it.
By the way, this smoked trout, let me just say, is as good as
it's phenomenal. It is phenomenal. How about you, Michael? I was just going to ask Michael about the restaurant business, because you hear so often that it's really hard to run a successful restaurant that lasts for a while, and you've done it. So how do you know how to do this? Same thing?
My wife has the MBA. I just do.
Does she really or not? Does she?
Yeah, I mean, I would
That's pretty
think it almost has to be in many. There's the business end, and then there's the food and the hospitality side. I would think.
We should, by the way, it's Pamela Ralston is your wife's name?
Yeah.
Pam Ralston,
right?
yeah.
Who's Julia, by the way?
Julia is the street in Rome that we visited. My brother was living there. He set us up in a pensione that was a few steps from the Via Julia, and that was our point of departure as we explored Roman cooking.
Well, that's very romantic.
Yeah.
Okay, so but do you divide it up like that? She does the business and you do the other stuff?
I think to get back to what you were saying about how do you do this? Do you need you don't need a business degree.
Yeah.
You tend to make, when you own the business, you tend to make really good decisions because it's directly affects you and your livelihood, and there's no substitute for being present in your business to sort of see how things are going.
Present. You had 3 days off.
We're present.
That's present.
So, I mean, I joke that I have no idea how restaurants work. I mean, I'm in the middle of them, and I'm like, this is crazy. You talked about the hospitality aspect in the front, and you talked about like all the steps of service and the coordination of front and the back, and the kitchen has its own rhythm and evolution throughout the day, and the dining room, and our staff have their own timing and evolution, and they overlap, but it's not like this perfect synergy. It's more and more like we're crashing into each other around 3:30 or 4 o'clock, and like, get out of my way.
It's not like the bear, though, right?
No,
you saw the bear.
It's not that. I've seen enough of the bear to sort of get it, but I kind of shy away from restaurant reality stuff when I get home because I need a
I think it's
mental
sort of like
break.
Workplace reality stuff. It's not, but it's pretty
Lawrence, how about
intense.
you? Have you been able to take more than 3 days off?
I just took a week off this
Good
last
for
week.
you.
Good for you.
Well, that was very daring, and things didn't go
By the way,
south.
his restaurant was vandalized while I was
I don't know yet. I haven't checked in with the staff
been
yet,
back,
so I'll see
so
tomorrow.
shut down.
Is that really true?
Yeah.
Wait a second. You go away from a small business for a week,
Yeah.
and you have it together not to be checking in nonstop?
I mean, I hope so. We'll find out.
Yeah.
But from what I know, we're still up and running.
That is a skill that would cause all of us to live longer.
I'd be with Michael, a nervous wreck all the time.
Yeah, we should talk.
Seriously, explain that to us. What is that in you that you're able? I'm sure you trust the people, but but it's still hard. No,
I think it's easy to say. I mean, Mike, you were talking about how it is about. It feels like it's more like things crashing together. Like you establish all these systems, and before you open, you probably have like this is. In your head, you're like, this is a perfect restaurant. This is exactly how everything will work all the time. But like 2 hours into it, it's completely different. So, I think it's about systems, but it's about also, I think, investing in the folks and
you look a lot calmer than he does, I have to say.
Michael
That's a
just
fair
told us
description.
he's got 5 people cooking in the kitchen all night long, and if somebody doesn't show up, then you're down to 4 people. Suppose you have like 3 people, then you're really screwed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to go out and make an announcement? You're going to wait twice as long for your dinner, or you diminish the numbers of choices on the menu? What do you do?
There's a lot of things you can do to sort of game a night like that. Thankfully, with 2 restaurants in the neighborhood, we have a little bit of crossover. Like we did, I was able to call Chef Brian over to Julia, where he spent 9.5 years. So that he's been with us this entire time. And it was his time to lead the new restaurant. So I called him over. I'm like, why don't you cook some pasta for a little while? I'm gonna do this or I'm gonna do that. And you have people cross-trained. So our general manager, Lauren, stepped in and she was running the expediting board in the kitchen at Moeka. And we, you figure it always happens.
Yeah.
It's like the show must go on mentality, and you're going to figure it out. You don't know what you're going to do yet, but it
Speaking
works.
of figure out, before you go, you didn't feed us what's in the other thing there. What is it?
Okay, so this is a caponata, an autumn vegetable caponata. So you have really late season sweet peppers. You have sunchokes from Eva's garden. You have squash and pine nuts and golden raisins.
Okay.
Beautiful looking.
That's up my alley.
And a smoked cured mackerel, Spanish mackerel. Wow. I need another.
No, just do it. Start with her. Just pass it over there. We'll
Just pass
figure it out
over.
amongst
And
ourselves.
Okay.
Can I say before you guys go, I've been to Moeka, I've been to Julia, both are spectacular. I'm going to your joint this week, by the way. I love Quincy and Quincy Foods, but congratulations to both of you.
Thank you.
For
Thank you.
well-deserved awards.
Yeah,
They're really
thank you.
spectacular and lots of luck in the future.
Oh, my God.
Patronize their places, everybody. You're going to be really happy. This is where you say thank you for coming, Margaret.
Oh, sorry, I was eating. I was eating. Okay.
How is that?
It's great. I
Okay,
mean,
good.
this is one of the great things about this job. You have wonderfully talented people come in and bring wonderfully put together dishes, and we're just very lucky. And congratulations
Thanks,
to you both.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
For us,
Chef
too.
Lawrence
To me,
Louis.
this is the first time that we've met.
No, is that true?
Yes, it
Oh,
is.
I love that. Oh, that's
Okay.
great.
Well, these guys are culinary superstars. Bon Appetit magazine, which is a
great.
national magazine, right? Named both of you onto their list of best new restaurants, which is pretty impressive.
In
for
America.
2023.
We're not talking
in
just-
America.
right,
That's why it's a
exactly.
national magazine.
Go
Jim.
Boston.
Hey,
Go
exactly.
Boston food
Thank
scene.
you.
That's what it is. Yeah.
And the two gentlemen we've been talking to, Chef Lawrence Louis of Rubato in Quincy, where we had this unbelievable French toast, and Chef Michael Pagliarini of Moeka in Cambridge, where we had this trout thing and this, I don't know what to call it. What do we call
And
it?
a vegetable
The trout
thing.
brouillette.
and a
Okay,
whatever.
well,
They were both
it's
great.
really good. Okay.
Good to see
Thank
you both,
very,
gentlemen.
very
Thanks
much.
so
Coming
So
up-
much fun to be here. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
so much.
you.
Appreciate it.
Really appreciate it. Coming up, our media maven, Sue O'Connell. She's going to tell us whether or not Ron DeSantis is putting lifts in his shoes so he can look as tall as Donald Trump if he ever makes it to the stage with him. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie. We're live at the library, streaming on Facebook.com/GBH News, YouTube.com/GBH News. November 14th, 11 to 12. Ask the Mayor with Michelle. We're right here at the library. We're joined now by noted chef. No, actually not. Now,
Hey,
can
I
you
actually
cook?
made the perfect roast on Sunday.
I find that really hard to believe.
I did too, but Ruby picked it out and it was very expensive, so I
Congratulations.
spent my whole day
You did.
checking its temperature.
That's great. In any case, she is our media maven, apparently, and roast cook.
Yes.
Someone the Boston Globe dismissively calls a local woman. Of course,
Yeah.
it's Sue O'Connell. She's co-publisher of Bay Windows and the South End News, co-hosts At Issue. That's every Sunday on NBC 10, right after Meet the Press. Sue O'Connell, it's
Good
nice to
day.
see you.
Good day.
to
Good to see
you.
you. Happy
Good day.
Halloween.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for joining us. So, Mike Johnson is the new Speaker of the House.
Good.
He's a very conservative guy.
Yeah.
To say the
He
least.
is pretty bad
Yeah.
on issues having to do with LGBTQ stuff. CNN got a bunch of the columns that he'd done. I don't know if he did them with his wife or not. They have a podcast as well.
Yeah, he also had a regular
Yeah,
column before
regular
he was
column.
elected.
Yeah, and he's said things like that gay sex should be criminalized and that expanding marriage rights could lead to a person marrying his pet. It's like something
Which is
out of
true,
the
I think, actually.
Yeah.
It's probably
I think we're really close
he's
to that.
second in
So-
line to the presidency
Yes.
of the
Yeah,
United
so,
States.
I said to Jim this morning, I don't know if this kind of nuttery on the right wing is good for
Nuttery.
Joe Biden's reelection campaign. If you got Donald Trump, a conservative vice president, and this guy.
Don't you think the first issue is whether it's good for America before it's
good.
for Joe
Well,
Biden's
yeah,
reelection?
but you're hoping he can't pass that many laws
Well, he
by
can't.
himself.
I mean, so what you have, you've got, in any case, you've got a Senate controlled by the Democrats, a Democratic president, a Republican Congress with a slim majority. So there's not a lot they're going to get done, regardless of who's
But
in
they
charge.
could,
But
with Trump.
Yeah, but they could. But right now, I think you need to keep in mind that the Republican Party is two parties. It's not one party. And as much as everyone can talk about the squad and the progressives and the radical left wing of the Democrats, it's the Democrats are a unified front and the Republicans are two parties. And he
Well, I agree with that, but they
represents-
all voted for Johnson
they
unanimously.
did, but the squishes, the folks in the middle, the Republicans who we would consider normal, even if you disagree with their policy, but went there to be lawmakers, I think they just voted for him because they had to move forward and could not bear the problems of not getting aid to Israel, perhaps aid to Ukraine, and the upcoming shutdown of the government if they didn't have someone there. But to your question, Marjorie, I think this is great for Joe Biden, and I think this speaks to the civil war that the Republicans are having, because this guy is against what at least 60% of Americans are for on almost every single issue. So if this is the guy the Republicans are picking, Joe Biden and the Democrats can say, you want more of this? Vote for Republicans, or you can vote for moderate Democrats who are much more in step with Americans in general.
So, Sue, I hope you don't take this the wrong way. I consider the following a compliment, but we'll see if you do.
Okay.
As soon as I read the story about whether or not Ron DeSantis, Marjorie's favorite politician, has lifts in his shoes so he looks taller than he actually is, on my honor, I'm raising my right hand, the first person I thought I would want to talk to about it was you.
Yes.
Now, you did take that as a compliment?
I do, because I have a lot of thoughts about this. So, as someone who is like one rainstorm away from looking like Rudy Giuliani, okay? I am totally white. My hair is whiter than Jim's. I have to spray stuff in it, so if it gets...
too.
Oh, it's...
Fruit
yeah.
Rescue's
So,
great.
just right along the side, a moment. I can get this color, but I'm not naturally this color, okay? I haven't appropriated anyone's color. I can
Got
get
it.
this color,
Okay.
but it's a spray tan. My waist may be smaller than it would normally, so I'm all for doing things to your body. If you want anything you want to do, I support. But what a hypocrite. Isn't this gender-affirming footwear?
That's right. That's a
Mr.
great
DeSantis,
point.
Governor DeSantis, who is against gender-affirming care for people who are trans or for kids who are trans, has lifts in his shoe, allegedly, in order to look more masculine. That's gender-affirming, or it could be drag. You could look at this as drag. He is in
Well, the white
cowboy
boots
drag.
were clearly drag. That was clearly
Yeah,
drag.
yeah. I mean, he's wearing high heels.
He is,
And
he
they're
is.
inside, they're the Tom Cruise shoes. to make him look taller, to give him height, which I'm all for. That's great. But it's just he's just being a hypocrite. He's a hypocrite.
By the way, for those, this is not made up out of whole cloth. There's a story on Politico.com where the the writer, the journalist who wrote the piece, consulted with 3 experts, all 3 of whom concluded lifts in his
Yeah, they
shoes.
did a real scientific study of the construction of the cowboy boot and how big the heel could be, and if you had to make the heel smaller to accommodate the lift
You can go down,
inside.
if you're awake at 2 o'clock in the morning, just go down the rabbit hole of the construction of the boot, because the first time you see it, you think, oh, that might be a camera angle, right? It just looks weird that the camera might be low and the boot looks so big. But then they actually really detect how his foot is like way up where the ankle, like he's wearing high heels. It's not just lifts.
But so weird.
Allegedly.
It's not like Mike Dukakis that people worried about when he was running against George H.W. Bush, when people said they had to stand in the debates. Mike Dukakis is what, about 5'7", 5'8", and
Probably,
Bush was over 6
Yeah.
feet tall. This guy's 5'11", according to his baseball statistics.
Well,
But an insecure 5'11",
I guess.
And who
obviously.
gets elected president, though?
Tall people.
Almost always.
Jim, I
We're
tell
waiting
you,
for
there's
you, Jim.
hope for you yet. At 6'5", you can slip right
I'm
in
young
there.
enough to do it. By the way, speaking of Dukakis, I got to mention, I wouldn't have thought of this had you not mentioned Dukakis, who we both love, and I
love
assume
to,
you do too. One of the great skits on Saturday Night Live, for those people who are too young for this, is they have John Lovitz playing Dukakis, and I can't remember, who is playing George H.W. Bush? I'll think of it in a minute.
Drew Carney?
No. In any case, Bush is tall, and the thing starts. There are 2 great moments. As soon as the debate starts, Dukakis is in his podium, and all of a sudden an elevator moves him up about 1.5 feet. So, but one of the greats is in this skit. It's Dana Carvey.
Dana Carvey.
That's what it is. So Dana Carvey is playing Bush. The moderator in the SNL skit asked Dana Carvey like a serious foreign policy question, and his answer is sort of like, 1 + 1 is 3, the sky is green, whatever, and there's a bubble that comes up over Dukakis' head, and in it says, and I'm losing to this guy,
Right.
Yeah.
which is was pretty
Yep.
great. We're talking
Yeah.
to Sue O'Connell, local woman.
The last governor who cared about the MBTA.
That
Mike
is-
Dukakis.
That's right. And Mike Dukakis is still going strong, well into his 80s. We've had him on the radio a few times.
He's
and
fabulous.
It's great. It's great to talk to him. He looks great. And he sounds great. Anyway, Ty Cobb, who used to be a big lawyer for Donald Trump, he said I think he was on, where was he on CNN last night?
He was with Erin Burnett last night.
Yes, and he thinks that Trump is going to get jailed for violating these gag orders.
I agree.
You do?
So I have said, I think the only jail time that Donald Trump will spend is in contempt of court or for disregarding these gag orders, because at some point the money means nothing to him. Finding him the money is in no way an actual punishment to him. But at the same time, there are a number of people in your life that have ultimate control over you, right? The beat cop, the prosecutor, and the judge. And if
Very
the
good
judge
point.
decides that you are threatening people in his or her courtroom, or you are disregarding the power of the court, and you know this better than I do, Jim, they will put you in contempt of court. I mean, all sorts of people we know have been held in contempt of court. So I think if he keeps it up, I mean, I don't know how good this would be for America, but at some point, if Donald Trump spends a day in jail, it's going to be in a cell based on contempt of court.
Okay, here's a little sound from the former president criticizing the gag order against him.
You saw yesterday when they take away my right to speak. I won't be able to speak like I'm speaking to you. And I'm not saying anything wrong. I'm saying the truth. I won't be able to do this with that trial because the judge, which of course we're appealing, because the judge said basically I don't have a right to speak.
Well, of course, the judge said nothing of the
like
kind.
that, right,
And the issue for those who
Completely
are against this kind of thing is what the judge is saying. The judge in the civil case was talking about how he was threatening his staff person,
right,
one of his chief aides, or not aide, law clerk kind of thing. And the judge in the criminal trial is suggesting that he is intentionally, which he is, attempting to intimidate witnesses or threaten witnesses, whether it's Mark Meadows was a couple of days ago, his former chief of staff, who, as Marjorie says, he never met, even though he's chief of staff for a couple of years. Right. And Barr, who was his former attorney general, he did that the next day. I mean, if any of these judges, all these judges go out of their way to say we're treating this former president like any other American would be treated.
Yeah, well, they're not.
Well, but if there's even a semblance of reality to this, there's a point at which this kind of behavior can't be tolerated.
Right.
And when I heard did you say former Trump lawyer?
Yes.
He was Trump's lawyer, right? A couple of in the
He was
impeachment.
the guy with the handlebar mustache.
Yeah.
Remember?
He
Now
looks
he's got
pretty.
a
He's
full
got a great
beard.
little thing happening.
Looks like
Huge
Santa Claus.
kind of beard. He was in a purple satin suit last night. He really looked spectacular. But I would assume so. Let's assume it happens.
Yeah.
One of these judges puts him in jail, which I think Trump would think is a dream come true until he had to spend the night in jail.
Right.
Because I think we never mentioned this. Doesn't matter where he campaigns, he flies back to sleep in one of his properties
every night.
no matter where
And he
is going
Yep.
to campaign. I don't think a jail cell is one of his properties.
No, well, who knows?
Yeah.
No, it's and if anyone's ever been held in contempt of court, it's not like you get to go to you go to the cell they have at the courthouse, or you go to the local jail. And of course, there'd have to be Secret Service there, and all that would have to happen. But it could very well happen, and I'm surprised, frankly, it hasn't happened yet.
Well, I think it is. By the way, have you spent a night in jail?
No, have you?
Yeah. I have been reprimanded by judges.
For what'd you do?
I had a dog license issue in the Dedham court, and I had my hand in my pocket like this, addressing the judge, and the bailiff came over, and the judge,
take your hand
out of your pocket, and I said, yes, sir, right away. I was side talking in a court once where the bailiff came over and asked me if I wanted to be held in contempt of court.
Wow.
And I said, no, sir, no, thank you, zippity-doo-dah.
But by the way, I was in, the story, I was in Midtown Central.
Oh, that's right, when they arrested you.
Overnight when I lay down in front of the tow truck and I got arrested and I had to spend the night.
Yeah.
And by the way, that was not exactly doing heavy time. It was terrifying.
Oh, it is.
And the notion that Donald Trump could make it through a night is just impossible.
And that's the point, Jim. There's the point with Donald Trump, which is he's just not afraid of right now. Like, I remember the first time I had to go to court for something.
I mean, because his money stuff.
Well, just whatever. Like, he just thinks he's above it all. The first time I went to court, I was kidding around with someone before we went in. They said, you should be concerned about going to court. I said, why? And then I realized whenever you're in court, you should be concerned and you should act appropriately because they have enormous power over your life.
Oh, yeah, the court officers come right over.
He doesn't think so. And that's...
Well, I think he thinks so in the civil trial.
Yeah.
I mean, he's showing up almost every day in a trial where he can't get incarcerated, even if he loses. But not only does he have potential to lose hundreds of millions of dollars.
But I think that's about his reputation.
I think that's exactly what it is.
He doesn't care about being accused of rape. He's
You're unfortunately
accused
right.
Of, because he's been found guilty of not being as rich as he said he was. That's
so let's move on to Matthew Perry. I was surprised.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a very sad case. 54 years old. He apparently drowns in a hot tub in his home. But I was surprised. There's been a huge. Sad reaction to this. He, of course, was the star of Friends. He played Chandler on Friends. And here's a little sound from Friends when he was playing Chandler.
I see you got your mustache back.
Well, my nose got lonely.
And you don't have a mustache, which is good. I'm Chandler. I make jokes when I'm uncomfortable.
So, I never saw the show.
That was a very popular show. Jennifer Aniston was on it. That was like her big star. Courtney Cox was on it. But what do you make of this? People have been very, very moved.
Yeah, Friends. Well, first of all, he is as a person. He also he embodies that didn't live up to his abilities and potential mystique that happens. Like, people who worked with him and people who watched him felt he never was able to actually, because of his addiction issues, even though, he's obviously was the most popular person in America, man in America for a long time, and the show was enormously popular then and now.
Still.
My daughter has it on endlessly at the house. I can't even tell you how many times I hear it in my sleep sometimes.
And they had the reunion.
Right, and the reunion was huge. They're having a coffee shop that's opening here in Boston. They have all sorts of things.
Right,
we once went to see the Thanksgiving episodes at the movie theater that they had a few years ago. So there's a great fandom to Friends that people love. And he was, because of his addiction issues, was unable to really enjoy it the way you can, and also wasn't able to go on and have the career after Friends that people thought he of this ensemble should have. Because if you watch it, like I'd seen it, of course, the first time it was on, but now that I've seen episodes 5 million times, the physicality in which he acts, the way that he brought the interpretation of Chandler's sarcasm, which also showed pain. So there's that. And where he was. You know, he had published this book, talked about his addiction issues. He had opened facilities to help other people with addiction. And his body had been through so much. He had had so many near-death experiences due to the addiction. So it was shocking in that, you know, you expected, you know, he had made it to where he needed to be to have a better life. And it's just sad. And again, you know, as many people are talking, I know on the Today Show, don't get in a hot tub alone, period. You know, I know obviously because of his addiction issues, people are concerned about that, but who knows what other medication he was on. You know, all sorts of things can happen to you in hot tubs. So.
You know, first of all, I never saw the show, and I have to say I knew very little about him, and I read the obituaries, and some days it was a bigger story, bigger headline, higher up headline than what was happening in either Maine or the Middle East. I am no fan of Gwyneth Paltrow's primarily for phony medical and health stuff. Goop, we've talked to our Kaplan. Did you read the Instagram post? She is really beautiful. I'm going to read it. I think it was in the Globe this morning, but it's been everywhere. I met Matthew Perry in 1993 at the Williamstown Theater Festival in Massachusetts. We were both there for most of the summer doing plays. He was so funny, so sweet, so much fun to be with. So much. We drove out to swim in creeks, had beers in the local college bar, kissed in a field of long grass. It was a magical summer. He had this shot at the pilot of Friends, and she goes on and on. But it's this beautiful, and he wrote in his book, I guess, I read this morning, about this thing as before either of them really had made it. So they were able to just be young lovers.
He dated Julia Roberts, too. He dated a number of women who are actors who are considered to be, you know, other than her Goop, good people who, you know, care about people. And he just had a lot of self-doubt, and he was unable to really have relationships with people that ended up being more than just a flash in the pan.
Also, anybody who has suffered through serious personal crises like he has, who is willing to talk about them and answer any question for the good of other people who are suffering is really got to be admired. And to me, that's probably his most significant contribution.
So in our household, he's so important to my family because I'm not allowed to be sarcastic at home because it's mean. It's mean, and I can't be sarcastic at work because it's mean.
Oh.
So when Chandler Bing is sarcastic, I just get to point to Ruby. You go, oh, him, you love? Could I be wearing any more sarcasm?
And of course, he's a local guy. He's from Williamstown.
He's from. He was only here for a short time. Then he moved to Canada. He actually went to school with Justin Trudeau, who he bullied in elementary school.
I didn't know that part. Is that true?
Yeah, and then he lived out all over the place. So
we knew Sue O'Connell, our media mate.
I know everything about Chandler Bing.
About
did you watch? But I didn't hear what you said. I mean, I did hear. Did you watch this when it was happening, or you're just watching because Ruby's watching?
No. When it came out, it's funny. I remember when it came out. I was working at the Boston Phoenix, and every month, Caroline Knapp, the author, Lisa DeSisto, who's a publisher of the Maine newspaper, and Beth Wolfsenberger Singer, who is now an editorial cartoonist for the Boston Globe. We all worked at the Boston Phoenix, and we get together every month for a babe dinner. And it actually was fodder for Caroline Knapp's column, her Boston Phoenix column. And Friends came out, and it was out for about 2 months, and we all admitted to each other, you know, there's a show that we didn't think we were going to like, but we actually do, and it's called Friends. And it actually kind of captured that young adult, you know, just getting out of college and just starting your life. And then when it came back, when it was available, we joke with Ruby because Ruby was adopted from China. When we were in the hotel room in China, the only show they had on was Oprah and Friends. That was the only two they had on. And so she has been addicted to Friends for 23 years, and we watch it nonstop in our house.
Speaking of Caroline Knapp, Drinking a Love Story is a great book.
Incredible
about a substance addiction. She's sadly no longer with us, but it's a great book.
Also, her book about dogs.
Pack of Two.
We only have 30 seconds. Is there a coyote update or no?
Yes, I was actually driving down the street home last night from work at like 4 o'clock, and I stopped at the speed bump, and my neighbor ran out and went, "There it is! There it is!" daytime, and there it was.
Are you not scared of it? I mean, we've had this discussion.
I got my whistle now. I was in my car, so I felt I was safe there. But I've got my whistle. I've got my stick. I didn't let you know.
She's got her whistle on her stick.
I got my whistle on my stick.
You don't need much more.
And I'm
when
from
that's
Revere, from Shirley Ave in the 1960s and 70s.
Just do me a favor. Don't be sarcastic.
I won't be, because it's mean.
Be careful. Say hi to Ruby and Maud. Maud's the dog.
We've been speaking with our media maven, Sue O'Connell, co-publisher of Bay News and Bay Windows, and the South End News, and co-host of At Issue every Sunday morning on NBC 10 right after Meet the Press. Thank you very much, Sue O'Connell.
Thanks, Sue O'Connell.
Thank you.
CNN's John King is with us to talk politics, what's going on in D.C. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH. Thank you, Sue.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marge Regan. We're live at the library, streaming at facebook.com/GBH News and youtube.com/GBH News. November 14th, 11 to noon. Ask the Mayor. Michelle Wu will join us here at the library. But now we're joined on Zoom by CNN's chief national correspondent, John King. He's host of the new reporting project, All Over the Map, with John King. Hey, John King.
Hello from South Riding, Virginia.
Whoa.
Oh, my goodness. Great to talk to you,
Well,
John.
wait a second. What are you doing there?
Big elections in Virginia next Tuesday. The balance of power in the legislature. The Republicans just control the House. The Democrats just control the state Senate. And you have Republican Governor Glenn Youngkin, who wants a Republican majority. He says he'll cut taxes. He says he'll expand parents' rights. And a big, huge issue here, if he gets the Republican majority, Virginia may join other southern states in restricting abortion more. It won't go as far as Florida. But he said, the governor says he would sign a 15-week restriction with exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. So it's a giant issue in these legislative races.
Margie, can I ask one more Virginia question? Mm-hmm. Every week or so, there's a story saying Glenn Youngkin may run, may not run. What's the word on the ground in Virginia about Governor Youngkin and the Republican primary?
There's a belief among Youngkin's supporters, and there are quite a few of them, and a lot of big fundraisers who like Youngkin. He comes out of the finance community. He was at the Carlyle Group. Yep. A lot of hedge fund guys and billionaires, frankly, who like Glenn Youngkin, who don't like Donald Trump, and they've been unimpressed with Ron DeSantis. So there are a lot of them who think if he wins a Republican majority in the legislature, that will boost his national standing and he can get in late. Really hard to get in this late, Jim. I mean, we have a new South Carolina poll out today that says Donald Trump's way ahead, even over Nikki Haley and Tim Scott in their home state. Wow. So will there be pressure on Youngkin to get in if he does well in next week's elections? Absolutely. Will he? I tried to ask him that question last week, and he kind of shrugged and said, if I win a Republican majority, I'm going to have a lot to do, and that's where I'm going to start.
One last thing, as long as you mentioned the efforts down there in Virginia to get a 15-week abortion ban, people have noted a million times, most people do not want a black or white kind of thing, ban abortion or few restrictions on abortion. 15 weeks kind of captures that so-called squishy middle on abortion, and I wonder whether, obviously the Republicans have been hurt by these 6-week bans and almost total bans. But I don't know. Do we know what people think about 15 weeks?
That's why I'm out here, Marjorie. And I think, look, this was a place where the last Republican to win Virginia for president was George W. Bush in 2004. Wow. He won Loudoun County. That's where I am right now. And he won it because you had suburban Republicans here who, George W. Bush, remember, was very anti-abortion. But that was in Roe v. Wade America.
Yep.
Now we live in Dobbs America. And that's what Governor Youngkin is trying to say, that this is not Florida. This is not Iowa. This is a more reasonable approach. It's a reasonable compromise is how he's trying to sell it. And the Democrats and abortion rights forces are saying, no, don't do it. Don't backslide. Give them 15 weeks, then they'll come back for more. But I think you raise an interesting point. And the question is not just, are there people who I've interviewed the other day, a conservative black voter who she's an independent, tends to vote Democrat, but comes up out of the more conservative black church, was born in South Carolina. Mm-hmm. She's fine with 15 weeks as long as the exceptions are there for rape, incest, and life of mother. So yeah. I do think the advertisements here have been bludgeoning tough on this issue. The question is, for voters who think it through, do they see that as a quote unquote reasonable compromise? That's why I think if Youngkin can win these elections and then gets the legislature to pass that, there will be a lot of Republicans who say, how do we win the suburbs back? Which means, how do we win the White House back? Who will be looking at that, I think.
So let's talk about the new Speaker of the House. On the one hand, you say yourself, Mike Johnson, that is, seems kind of out of the mainstream when his columns have talked about things like, gay marriage is opening the door to people marrying their pet, which seems absolutely ridiculous. On the other hand, your colleague, Harry Ensign at CNN, wrote a column saying that he's actually well within the mainstream of today's GOP. A lot of GOPs are election deniers. A lot of them don't like gay marriage, and a lot of them are anti-abortion. So what do you think of the new speaker and how he might...
He is the most conservative speaker of my lifetime. Oh. I've been in Washington for 35 years now, close to that. And so the question is, does that become a national issue? Right? We used to say, in the name of a former speaker from where you guys are sitting, Tip O'Neill used to coin the phrase, all politics is local. All politics is national now. And to the point, connect the dots we were just talking about. Youngkin is trying to say, yes, I'm a conservative, but I know I need to reach out to the other side. I'm trying to meet you in the middle on an issue like abortion, or at least meet you, 2/3 my way and 1/3 your way. I'll come some of your way, would be his argument on that issue. The Democrats are going to try to paint Speaker Johnson as way out there. And he's third in line to the presidency, second in line, I guess, president, vice president, Speaker of the House. So can they nationalize him? He comes across, when you listen to him, he's very soft-spoken, he's very well-mannered, he comes across as very friendly and approachable, and I think the Democrats do have a communication challenge, if you will, a branding challenge, because if you just listen to his interviews, seems like a really nice guy. If you look at his record, some voters will like this. In his home state of Louisiana, obviously, he is a mainstream conservative in his district in Louisiana. Could you sell that in Newton? No. Can you sell that in the Philadelphia suburbs? Probably not. Can you sell it where I am in Northern Virginia? Probably not. And so can Democrats make him the issue? Essentially, if you give Republicans power, these are the people in the boardroom, if you will. Speaker Johnson and Donald Trump, if he's president again. That'll be the argument. And I think the Democrats are going to try to make him a big issue next year. Like the Republicans tried with Nancy Pelosi at times. Democrats had a little less luck with Kevin McCarthy. They just ran against Trump and MAGA. We'll see. I think it's a fascinating question.
Yeah, because I think exactly what you do. If you say 1, 2, and 3 are, Trump, whoever his vice president is, which we assume would be a conservative person, and then this guy, that you would have a trifecta of people making you nervous if you're a social liberal.
Democrats trying to get the House majority back, and a presidential year tends to favor that. Next year, I'm not so sure about that, but normally Democrats feel better about their chances with higher turnout of when the House majority is in play like this. You can bet, does it impact the presidential vote? I'm not so sure, but you can bet the campaign for the House is going to be a lot about just that, Marjorie.
So, John King, mark this down. I'm going to say something I've never said before, either on the air or publicly.
Oh, we're excited, Jim.
I'm with Mitch McConnell. And what I mean by that, the notion that Johnson split apart this effort to fund whatever should go to the Middle East, to Israel in particular, that's a whole other topic, and eliminates funding for people fighting to maintain a democracy in Ukraine is unimaginable to me. Mitch McConnell is on the right side of this issue for the most part. What happens to Ukraine? I don't mean in the immediate future, but at all.
Look, I think you have to break it down into what happens with this next congressional vote, then what happens in the 2024 election. And I think there are two big questions. The fact that Leader McConnell, Jim agrees with Leader McConnell. There's your breaking news. Fire up the banner. Look, this is important to him. Whatever you think of Mitch McConnell in the listening audience, if you agree that the United States should stand with a democracy that was steamrolled by its bully neighbor, Vladimir Putin, then you're with Mitch McConnell on that issue. You may not be with him on other issues. To the point that he invited the Ukrainian ambassador to the United States to come to Kentucky the other day because he wanted to stand with her and wanted to make this point. The Democrats control the Senate, but they have Leader McConnell. Leader McConnell has some issues in his own Republican conference in the Senate. Mitt Romney is with him on keeping them together. Rick Scott of Florida is not. But with the Democrats, there's a big Senate majority for linking them. The House, the question is, do the moderates in the House, do the New York moderates who are already in trouble, some of them might have a larger Jewish American constituency. They want to vote for the Israel funding, but they also might have a more suburban, pro-Ukraine constituency. Can the new speaker keep his majority together and pass it separately first, and then probably have to accept a compromise with the Senate? That would be the big negotiating point. And we're going to go through this a lot. This is the first big test of how does this House operate? Do they pass the conservative Republican plan? Then the Senate says, sorry, no. And then what happens in those negotiations? How much, when you have when Biden says link them, the Senate says link them, and the House says separate them, normally you'd say you're outvoted 2-1. But this is the fascinating question going forward. Can Speaker Johnson go back into that room? They're all saying now the speaker fight is over. We like this guy. We're going to stick with this guy. We understand he's going to have to compromise sometimes. But when he actually has to walk back into the room and say, now I need you to vote for this, we're going to do them together, there's your first test.
But then the Democrats are already linking Russia to Iran to Hezbollah. I don't know. It would seem like that would be a legitimate kickback to what the Republicans want to do, I think.
You can make a case that the United States should stand against terrorism and with good and for democracy. The Democratic politics get a little complicated because there are a good number of progressives who say, yes, it was horrible that Hamas attacked Israel, but they are already saying that the Israeli response is either disproportionate or not careful enough to avoid civilian casualties. So the President of the United States, as he moves forward on this, is going to have there aren't enough votes there to undermine the president's position that you should link Israel and Ukraine. But on the Israel question and the Palestinian question, there's a loud, again, not a lot of votes, but a very vocal group of progressives who don't like what they see in the Israeli response.
We're talking to John King from CNN. So, John King, I would hazard to guess that the vast majority of our audience, including me, never heard of Dean Phillips till about a week ago. For those in that category, can you explain to people who he is and what he's doing and what you think the impact might be?
He's a congressman from Minnesota who believes that Joe Biden has been a great president, but that he's too old, essentially, and that he's not up to the task, and that Donald Trump will beat him, or that any Republican. Dean Phillips believes that any mainstream Republican or Donald Trump would beat Joe Biden, and he thinks the Democratic Party needs to be shaken out of its what he says its unwillingness to at least have a debate about that. And so he's filed in New Hampshire. The President of the United States is not going to be on the ballot in New Hampshire because New Hampshire is violating the Democratic Party rules rewritten by Joe Biden, who, remember, lost New Hampshire 3 times. He ran for president, and lost Iowa all 3 times. He ran for president. So Joe Biden wants South Carolina to be first. Dean Phillips is trying to make a point, and he's trying to make it first by, quote unquote, winning the New Hampshire primary, even though the delegates to the convention, it won't matter as much, if you will. But he's trying to get the Democratic Party to have a debate about, is Joe Biden too old or not vigorous enough, if you don't want to make it about age, to serve 4 more years. I don't know the answer, Jim, to the question of, how effective will that be or how damaging to Joe Biden, if at all, that will be. Congressman Phillips is quite articulate. He's quite passionate. He says he didn't want to do this. He was hoping somebody better known came forward. There are a lot of people who roll their eyes at that and see, a young guy trying to, make an ego statement here. But he's running. We'll see how long he runs, and we'll see. But I think in these volatile times, I'm out in this place now trying to figure out the margins in this fast-growing suburban county. If the Republicans, I just was having an interview with an Asian American woman. The Asian American population where I am is exploding. The Latino population is exploding. Elections now so often are on the margins, right? If a tiny percentage stays home or shifts to the other party. So I think, the people who dismiss Dean Phillips and say, oh, give me a break, I would warn that we need to watch everything. Whether it's a primary challenge to the president by a relatively unknown congressman, what states does Cornel West get on the ballot as a third-party candidate? What states does Robert Kennedy Jr. get on the ballot as an independent candidate? There are a lot of factors here that I say pay attention to everything because we live in such volatile times.
So Ron DeSantis, as we know, is not doing very well. We discussed with our media maven, Sue O'Connell. He's got lifts in his shoes now, apparently,
Allegedly.
so he can look a little taller than he is, although I thought he was fairly tall. But anyway, DeSantis is not doing that well. Pence is gone. Nikki Haley is up. Where are we in the Republican primaries?
We're still in this is Trump's overwhelmingly to win, if you will. Again, CNN just released a new poll in South Carolina that shows Trump with majority support in the home state of Nikki Haley and Tim Scott. Nikki Haley was in second place, a distant second place. Trump is at 53, I think. I don't have it in front of me, but he's above 50, and she is at 22. She's now either equal or eclipsing DeSantis in Iowa and New Hampshire. I would say that Haley has some lowercase m momentum, but not enough yet to consolidate. There's still not a Trump alternative. The only way to test this, based on all the data you see, is for Republicans to say, we have Trump, and now we're going to pick one of these other candidates. There's another debate next week. I think because of the issues we just talked about, whether it's Trump's legal issues, whether it's Israel, whether it's Ukraine, whether it's some recent improved economic data here in the United States, there's another Republican debate. It will be a smaller stage, and I think Republican voters, even before they get to vote in an odd way, in the polling, are going to have to make a decision, and fundraisers. By the end of do we want to try to nudge more candidates out of the race? The problem is, if DeSantis and Haley, if one of them got out, maybe it would shake up the race. They're the two with math, right? They're the two that if one could get the other's numbers, then it gets a little interesting. At the moment, this is great for Trump. He's, at 50 in some states, high 40s in others, and they're in the teens or maybe just cracking 20, and it still adds up to Trump. But we're about to pass into November. I always keep saying, let's talk about this after Thanksgiving, and then right after Christmas when the voting starts. So we are getting closer to the point that unless the fundamentals beneath Trump change, then it's Trump.
One last thing about this. I think Nikki Haley is the best shot for the Republicans. I think even better than Donald Trump. It's not because I think Trump can't beat Joe Biden. He could. I don't know if he will. But I think Nikki Haley, despite her position on abortion, which Marjorie thinks would drag down any Republican, and I hope she's right actually on that issue, would be a very attractive candidate, and as you say, the only two who have serious numbers are DeSantis and Haley, and one might argue that if one pulled out and endorsed the other one, not that all the votes would go there, but a lot would. What does a Ron DeSantis, the generic Ron DeSantis, say to himself? My analysis was that Pence dropped out not just because he had very little money and very few supporters, but because if you get crushed as a former vice president, your platform almost disappears. I would say the same thing about Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis was the exploding star. He was the guy who was probably or possibly going to take down Donald Trump. He's being embarrassed in virtually every serious race as of the moment. And it seems to me, if and when he comes in third or whatever in Iowa or New Hampshire, that the bloom is off that rose too. So is it unrealistic to think that he decides in a week or two, maybe after the Miami debate, I have to spend more time with my family and govern my home state?
Publicly, he and the people around him say absolutely not. But I think, Jim, for all of them, including Governor DeSantis, what you just laid out is a very smart way to look at it. A former Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence, who 10 years ago, on paper, again, in the Republican primary, is a pretty formidable candidate. Former congressman, Midwestern governor, right. Vice President of the United States. A lot of Democrats don't agree with his positions on abortion, gay rights, et cetera. But as a Republican candidate in the Republican Party, pretty strong candidate, especially in a state like Iowa. He could get zero traction. He decided, to your point, I don't want to lose. It's hard raising money, number one. DeSantis does because of the big state of Florida. He's a sitting governor. He has an opportunity to raise more money right now. But I do think the question comes, maybe after this next debate, maybe closer to Christmas, do I want to actually lose, right? And what will that do to my long-term, my future trajectory? When I first started doing this, if you lost, you were a loser. There are people now who run and then come back, so I don't know if it's clear-cut as before. But the question is, who are you losing to, right? Do you want to come in behind Haley and Ramaswamy if you're the sitting governor of Florida and you think you have a future? And the same thing will matter to all the other candidates. I don't want to pick on DeSantis. I think they're all going to have to go through this. But the interesting factor that's the X factor to me is the normal conversation is, am I competitive? Is this going to damage my future even if I lose and Trump's the nominee or someone else is the nominee? They also have to think this time, some of them still think, eventually one of these trials is going to get Donald Trump. There's zero evidence that that's true, that even if he were convicted, if these trials happen, even if he were convicted, that it would hurt him. But in the back of their mind, they are thinking about some factor that no other presidential candidate has ever had to think about because we've never been here before.
Correct. So, John, the good news for you is we don't have enough time to talk about the Patriots. So you are...
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. Remember, you owe us. John King, good luck in Virginia. We'll be checking out your reporting. Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
CNN Chief National Correspondent John King joins us every week. He's host of the new reporting project, All Over the Map with John King. And as always, we appreciate his time. Coming up next, love it or hate it. It is apparently a pretty big day today for candy corn. We'll open the lines to ask you about the infamous wax-like candy, which I think is absolutely horrible, but other people don't. And all the other candies that you're into this Halloween. What's your candy of choice? What do you avoid eating today? Call us or text us at 877-301-8970. What do you hoard at the candy store so you can have that left over? When they don't take all your candy off your front porch, you're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan. November 14th, 2 weeks, 11 to noon. Ask the Mayor with Michelle Wu here at the library. So Halloween candy sales grew 14% last year. U.S. consumers dropped close to $4 billion on candy during the 6-week run-up to this very day. But come tomorrow morning, the shelves may be lined with bags upon bags of discounted, unwanted candy corn. The number of candy corn packages sold during Halloween season has been falling every year, thankfully, since 2018, reaching a low of only 12.7 million last year, according to CNN. The phone and text lines are open at 877-301-8970. Do you despise candy corn or maybe some other candy? Circus Peanuts, I am looking at you. The number is 877-301-8970. This is about as simple as it gets. It's Halloween. What's your favorite? What's your least favorite? And why? 877-301-8970. So give me your best and your worst.
Well, I stand with my fellow Americans, Jim.
What on? Why?
Apparently, it's Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, that's how I say it?
Reese's, I think.
Reese's Peanut Butter Cups are my favorite. That's what I bought a bunch of.
What's your least?
And so are my fellow Americans.
What's your favorite?
Well, I've never had this horrible, the Circus Peanuts.
You've never had a Circus Peanut?
No, I haven't had a Circus
Peanut. It's
Peanut.
like air inside a marshmallow shaped like a peanut.
Okay, well, I'm not into that.
It's disgusting.
And I'm not into candy corn. I don't get
Horrible.
it. I don't get it. I don't get why people love candy corn as much as they do, but apparently they do. But anyway, and I also like M&Ms, which are the second favorite. So I feel one with my countrymen. How
You
about
do.
you?
I like Reese's, I do, or Reese's, as almost
Whatever
everyone in
it is.
Massachusetts says. I like them. What are some other choices? Well, you know what? I have to say, a frozen mini Snicker is about as good as it gets.
You're
You
going to
take
get a frozen mini Snicker on Halloween, though.
Oh, yes, you can. You
Well,
take
it's
out
gonna
of the
thaw.
bags that you're going to give the kids,
Oh,
because you're not
okay,
going
you
to give them
freeze
the
it.
kids.
Okay,
You put them in
okay.
the freezer, and then you pop one in here and there, and they are absolutely phenomenal. 877-301-8970.
Okay, we have a little sound here from Louis Black, who, of course, is a comedian, and he doesn't like candy corn.
He doesn't like anything,
He doesn't
actually.
like it. Well, he doesn't like candy corn. Here he is.
Candy corn is the only candy in the history of America that's never been advertised. And there's a reason. All of the candy corn that was ever made was made in 1911. And so, since nobody eats that stuff, every year there's a ton of it left over. And the candy corn company sends the guys to the villages and they collect out of the dumpsters all the candy corn we've thrown away. They wash it, they wash it.
They wash it. 877-301-8970. Is this note from you, Jamie? I find this hard to believe. Jamie contends, Marjorie, that you guys, that'd be you and me, had circus peanuts last Halloween.
Oh,
We
yeah?
sent a producer to 7-Eleven to buy them. You ate them and we hated them. Oh, we ate them and hated. Oh, so that is
I blocked
true.
it out,
Okay.
clearly.
877-301-8970. I have to say, while I have encountered a person or two who likes candy corn, which I don't really understand, I have never met a person who enjoys circus. Anybody in the audience here likes the circus peanuts?
No one even knows.
Thank you
what they
very
are.
much. No, they do. A lot of thumbs down. Thank you
Okay.
for your cooperation on that issue. Josh in Waltham, we are talking Halloween. Well, we're talking candy in general on Halloween. Hey there, Josh.
Hello, hello.
Hello to you.
So I'm an after-school teacher, and yesterday I asked my kindergarten, first-grade kiddos what their favorite candy was, and I was shocked. Like, nobody said chocolate. Anything chocolate. It was all Skittles and Sour Patch Kids and Twizzlers. One kid even said Twizzlers. I thought he must have had a fever or something. Yeah, I mean, I'm a chocolate guy.
Me too.
Even though I don't know if either of you caught John Oliver's Last Week Tonight.
No.
This
What do you
past
do?
Sunday.
What did he say?
I love him.
It was on chocolate and the farming of cocoa, and of course it's all terrible and depressing and makes you want to not eat chocolate ever again. But of course I still went into work yesterday, and first thing I did, I'm like, ooh, where's the candy, the chocolate, that we
honest
keep
man,
away from
Josh.
the kids.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do what I can.
Josh, thanks for your honesty. Thanks for sharing your story. We appreciate it. You didn't mention, did you see what the third most popular candy in America is?
Hot tamales.
What is a hot
I
tamale?
don't know. I think they're those little red things.
And you see
right?
what the 8th favorite candy is?
Candy corn.
Candy corn.
Yeah. It's right
Sour
up there.
Patch Kids are 5.
Yeah, Skittles. Skittles are good.
Starburst Burst is 6.
But
I mean, really?
supposedly Halloween chocolate is still
they're the hot
America's
tamales.
favorite candy. That's what they said according to CNN.com. America's favorite Halloween candy remains chocolate. So the caller that just called is right in line.
Are you giving out
with
candy
that.
at your house tonight?
Yeah, of course I am.
You are?
Yeah. Candy corn and Trump. Both are orange, white, and yellow. Both are completely disgusting and yet are always around and popular with deplorables. So there you go.
That's actually pretty good.
That's a text.
Wish I
Diane
had
from
said
Quincy.
that.
Thank you for calling.
Hey, Diane.
All right, hi everybody. I was at the Y this morning.
Oh, great.
And there was a trivia question.
Yeah.
What was candy cane? What was it called back in the day?
Oh, I know that. Dog poop.
Oh, Jim.
No.
What was it called?
Chicken feed.
Chicken feed?
Yep.
I think I'm
looks
embarrassed
like
to
it,
say I think I
actually.
knew that, actually. Who is the source of that information there, Diane?
Well, at the Y in Quincy, they always have a board up,
Oh, they do, yeah.
like trivia questions.
Yeah, I think you can trust the wine. If you can't trust the wine in Quincy, what's the point, right? So I like that information.
Yeah.
The chicken what? Chicken feed.
Chicken feed.
Thank you, Diane. We appreciate the information very much. Thank you.
Yeah, even worse than candy corn is the caramel apple flavored candy corn, says Beth in Boston.
Wait a second. Didn't you say there's hot dog? Hey, Jamie. Jamie told us this morning there is now hot dog, and I love hot dogs. Hot dog flavored candy corn. Can you imagine putting that in your mouth?
No, I can't.
You know what
See
I
a
also
picture
can't.
of the hot tamales, cinnamon
Yeah,
flavored.
it's a box of hot tamales.
Yeah, chewy candies.
You know what I also can't stand since
What?
you brought it up. Well, I guess you brought it up. How do you feel about caramel apples? I mean, there are two problems with it. One, you have a really good chance
Pulling
of
out a
cracking
filling.
a tooth
Yeah.
or pulling out a
Yeah.
filling. And secondly, the stickiness gets all over your face.
I know.
How do you feel about that?
It's an American tragedy.
It is
Jim.
an
What can I
American
say? I
tragedy.
feel really bad about the whole
If
situation.
you want an apple, eat an apple. If you want
Emerson-
candy, eat candy.
Emerson in the car. Thank you for calling.
Hello, Emerson.
So I must be a cereal infractor because I like candy corn and candy peanuts.
And why is that? Why is that?
I don't know, just always have. I'm about the only one in my family of 8 kids, but just love them.
Well, let's break it down for a second, Emerson. So you see a circus peanut. You call it a candy peanut. We call it whatever. We know we're talking about the same thing. It is relatively tasteless. The texture is not great, and it's mostly comprised of air. Other than that, what do you find appealing?
So my guess is I like the texture and I like the sugar high, I'm guessing.
Okay. Well, there's the honest
Okay.
outlier, Emerson, in the car. Thank you, Emerson.
You're a big cook, Jim.
I am a
Karen from
cook. I'm not a
Acushnet
big
has sent us a recipe.
For what?
Take candy corn, melt it, add crushed graham crackers, put in brownie pan, let it set, cut into small pieces, and dip in chocolate. They are just like Butterfingers.
I might eat that, actually. I might eat that. I'm a
By
huge
the way,
graham cracker fan.
I was at CVS. I couldn't find any Butterfingers.
That's really sad.
I was very upset.
How much
about
you
it.
love? By the way, that's
I
not on
love
the list. How great are
Butterfingers.
Butterfingers?
I love Butterfingers.
What is the crunchy stuff inside?
I don't know.
Does that sound like
I
a
don't know,
peanut? What
but-
is it?
but it's great.
Jamie, can you look that up for us, please? Thank you very much. Jamie's our lead producer. He's going to check it out. Now, by the way, Jamie, again, who came back from 2 weeks. Am I allowed to say you were 2 weeks in Italy? He came back, and all he's done in 2 days of work is do AI images of me doing different things. And I appear to be, actually, that looks a little bit like me.
It does.
Unlike the others.
Yeah.
A little bit better, but looks pretty much like me. In apparently a terry cloth Henley. Is that what would you call that?
You look like
Jamie?
you're in the steam bath.
Oh, he just.
Oh, you're in a bathtub.
I'm in a bathtub full of candy corn. So, right up to my crotch there. That's.
Okay.
Oh, look at that. Okay, he said, Aiden said he spared you the shirtless one. Thank you for doing that. We're talking about best and worst candy because today is candy day, essentially, in America. And here is Sam in Roxbury. Sam, what's your deal?
Oh, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Hands down, sugar babies.
Sugar babies.
What the hell is a
That's
sugar
good one.
baby?
Oh, I've had those.
What is it?
Picture a rabbit turd made of like brown sugar. It's about that size.
Oh, they are. It's exactly what they look like. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
They're absolutely delicious. Not to be confused with the sugar daddy. That's like a stick. If you bite into it, it will rip out your teeth.
It can break every tooth in your mouth. That's true. By the way, these look like Raisinets or something like that. Is that what they look like or what there, Sam?
They are absolutely amazing.
Yeah, they're
at
good.
any time of the day or night.
Wait, don't go away yet. What's inside of a sugar baby? How do you not?
It feels like brown. It
Brown
feels
sugar.
like regular brown sugar.
Don't you think?
Oh, wow.
I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
I used to eat those all the time.
You sound like you're really happy about that, Sam, and we appreciate that. Thank you very, very much. Sugar Daddy, the key, and Sam made a very important point. If you do not have dental insurance, and even if you do, don't ever get near a sugar daddy.
Yeah.
Have you, occasionally when you get stuck with a sugar daddy, you have this experience, you have no other candy and
Yeah.
you need candy?
Yeah.
You try to suck on it
You
for as
do.
long as possible
Yep.
so it softens
Gets
up.
soft.
But then you can't wait and you
Can't.
take a bite
No,
and you
can't.
realize
You
what Sam
realize
said
then
is
your
true.
teeth are stuck together.
Your teeth are stuck together for weeks.
Now, Alyssa from Ithaca, New York says candy corn is delicious, but you have to get the fresh, high-end candy corn, like from a candy store on Charles Street, not gross, waxy stuff from the grocery store in a dusty bag. My go-to handing out for kids on Halloween night, though, is Snickers all the way. Now, she raises a good point because
What did she
I, of course,
say?
am a big fan of the
Lint balls.
Lint chocolate thing.
Well, they're not cheap, though.
They're not cheap.
They're right across the street from the library.
But you know what they are?
I know what they
They're
are.
really fresh.
They are.
You buy them at the store.
Yeah.
It is a million times, and I have about 75 of them right now in my cabinet.
You do?
At home, yes.
They
buy
melt,
one.
though, don't they?
Well, you have to put them in the refrigerator, actually,
Oh,
in the summertime.
that's
you have to
really
wait to
interesting.
eat them. But
Okay.
the point is, it is one experience when you buy them from the Lint store across the street.
Yeah.
There's a totally different experience.
Like
when
at a
you buy them, like
Walgreens
at
kind of thing.
Staples or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
Where they've been on the,
Let me tell you, my experience is I generally don't go to Staples for a piece of chocolate. I don't know about
Yeah, but sometimes
About
you go
you?
in there, you're buying things like you've bought coffee. You have bought coffee, Jim.
Maybe I have,
at
maybe I
Staples,
haven't.
And you happen to go buy, or at CVS. They sell them at CVS too.
You ever had fresh candy corn like that woman said on Charles Street?
No, I haven't.
No, you haven't.
I'm not interested in it
No,
at all.
neither am I, thank you.
Okay, Fifth Avenue Bar is another one. John from Beverly says, "Oh, caramel apples are not the same as candy apples. One is heaven, one is horrible. Best caramel apples in the world are from Wilson Farms in
We love
Lexington,"
Wilson Farms.
says a texter.
Is it Wilson Farm or Wilson Farms?
I don't know.
Susan, you're in a car. You're next on Boston Public Radio. What's your deal?
Hello, and this is my second time getting through to you, so I'm thrilled.
We're thrilled too.
Very thrilled.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So M&Ms are just the greatest.
Yeah.
They are.
Of course.
Yeah.
And my fantasy is to dive naked into a vat of M&Ms and eat my way to the top.
Oh, actually, I can't believe you say it's your. I did it last night, and it's just as great as you think, Susan. It's fabulous. Yeah.
Listen, Jim, if you give me your address, I'll come over and we can do that together.
Let me
my
think about it.
goodness.
Send me an email, and I'll consider it. I'll get back to
He'll
you.
be there.
But let me handle this, Marjorie. I can. Susan, thank you. You know what the problem with M&Ms? So maybe Susan's into this. I don't know. If you put your M&Ms in your hand.
They melt and get colors all
if
over
you
your hand. Yeah.
don't immediately put them in your mouth,
Yeah.
like I mean immediately, you have all the colors
Well, you don't
on your hand.
have a handful. You have to
Susan, are
control
you still
yourself.
there, Susan?
I'm here.
How do you feel about your body being covered with M&M colors?
I'm not thrilled about my hand being covered, but
But-
if I'm going to go for it in the vat, I can live with it.
Boy, I bet you can. Susan, thank you very much for the very provocative phone call. We thank you very much. Thank
Karen, is it Whitensville or Whitensville?
Whitensville.
Whitensville. Karen in Whitensville says, "I was never a fan of Skittles until I tried the edibles, which taste like Skittles. Way better than regular Skittles and much better side effects."
Can I tell you something? I want to make an admission. I like Skittles. But you don't say, no one says, like, my favorite candy is Skittles. If you don't have your favorite candy and someone has a bag of Skittles and they hand it to you, it's a good thing to eat. But it's not like anybody's number one, do you know? Do you like
Yeah.
licorice?
No.
Okay, good.
Do you?
I love it.
You do?
I love high quality
Red or
licorice.
black?
I prefer the black, thank you for asking.
Oh,
But
here's a new one. A sweet tart. A total sweet tart.
Never
Free.
heard of that.
Christine from Marblehead. Nothing like the crunch of pure sugar on your teeth. Did anybody mention Junior Mints? No, we did not. I used to love to soften those fake red lips and teeth and chew on them. Yummy. Boy, a lot of people are really passionate about their candy here, Jim. Let's go to Jim from New Hampshire.
Well, you are too. You talk about lint balls all the time.
Well, I do.
All the time.
I do?
Yes,
Okay.
you do.
Well, they're very good. From the store.
I'm
across
not
the street.
criticizing you. I'm just saying you're like those people.
You can get all different flavors. You go in and you just fill up. You can try the different kinds, the ones with salt, the ones without salt, caramel, no caramel, white chocolate, dark chocolate, milk chocolate. By the way, milk chocolate beats dark chocolate every year. People say the dark chocolate is better for you, but people are apparently
That's good. Dark
uncaring
chocolate is
about
better
that.
for you.
Well, people don't care. They want
Who
the
wrote this note about the M&Ms? That you, Zoe? After the brown, I've forgotten this. After the brown M&Ms swapped her stilettos for lower block heels, and the green M&M
that's right.
traded in go-go boots for sneakers. This was unbelievable. Tucker Carlson declared, this is true, M&Ms, quote, M&Ms will not be satisfied until every last cartoon character is deeply unappealing and totally androgynous, and that when you're totally turned off, we've achieved equity.
That's right.
I mean, really?
You know, I think as the shoes of the M&Ms go, there goes America. I think Tucker Carlson just hit it right on the
But you know how
nose,
many
as usual.
millions of people heard this and are nodding in agreement? And
Well, you know what?
What?
Millions of people aren't hearing him anymore.
Well, yeah, I wonder. Yeah, that's a good point. Actually.
Jim from
By the
New
way,
Hampshire.
apparently there are a lot of secrets about, not secrets, real stories about his departure from Fox News that are in the new Brian Stelter book, which I am dying to read. I think it comes out in early November.
Yes, we're going to try to get him on
We
for
are, I'm
his
sure.
new book, too.
Yes, we are.
Jim from New Hampshire, thank you for calling.
Hey, Jim, what's your deal?
Hey, Jim and Marjorie. Hey, when I was a little kid, my grandparents owned a cottage on a pond in Sunapee, and I'll tell you, they were the greatest cooks, and they would never get candy. But when they did, it was spearmint gumdrops, and they would get it in like the half-gallon buckets from Sam's Club.
Oh,
and I'll tell you, they are absolutely disgusting. But after 2 hours of swimming, you just got to have something sugary. And I would have to force it down, but it was just sugar. So you had to go with something, and I can't stand them to this day. But by
the way, if I remember correctly, the texture of those is horrible, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, that's great. Jim, thank you for sharing that. Speaking of Sam's Club, here's Costco. Nicole, our coworker, had a phase where she had to have Little Bites brownies every day. She had a 30-pack, the only thing I ordered, from a Costco delivered from an hour away. Felt bad for the driver. Tipped him well. I've never had a Little Bite fudge brownie. Have you?
I don't think I've ever
They
had a
actually
Little
look fairly
Bite.
appealing, to tell you the
I've not
truth.
had any either. Here's a weird one. Cheryl from Boston loves Raisinets.
I love Raisinets. You don't like Raisinets?
Well, I wouldn't have said that as my favorite.
Aren't they little
candy.
raisins covered in chocolate, right? Like little,
Yeah, she
like
can't
little
find-
rabbit turds, like the guy said before.
That's right. She can't find them in the snack size anymore, and she's pretty upset about it, Jim.
I don't know if I've seen them lately
yeah.
either.
Eric does like dark chocolate. He says dark chocolate M&Ms are the best. Peanut M&Ms.
They have lots of. I'm a traditionalist. Did you say you're a traditionalist when it comes? Is that what you said a minute ago?
Jim.
Milk
Yeah.
chocolate.
Milk chocolate.
Milk chocolate.
You know what I used to love?
No.
Hershey bars.
What?
You can get those in the little small
I don't
size.
think so,
You don't
no.
like those?
No, I'm telling you, Milky Way. A lot of people make big distinctions between Milky Way and Snickers. I think one is. I think
Coconut?
Snickers may have peanuts. No, it's not coconut. Thank you, John.
Snickers
John
has peanuts. Thank you, John.
Of course, knew the answer.
John knows everything.
He does know everything, and I'm telling
Thank God
you,
he's there.
if there's any recommendation I've ever made that listeners should honor, is you take the baby Snickers and put about 20 of them in the freezer and have them one at a time when the spirit moves you, and it really is heaven on earth.
Charleston Chews.
Oh, I know those. I think they also break your teeth, don't they?
I don't know.
Okay.
Patrice from Shirley says they are the best. And she also says you recommend that you freeze them first.
That's what Zoe just said, too. I hope I pronounced your name right in Watertown. Zoral, is that right, Zoral?
Zorro.
Zoral. Sorry, Zoral. We have 30 seconds. All yours. Take it away.
Here we go. First of all, thank you so much for doing what you guys do. And can I just say something real quick?
Sure.
Ted and Marjorie. You remember Ted and Janet?
Yes, of course.
I do,
Whoops.
yeah.
Yeah, and you guys remind me of them so much.
Yeah, well, they were
Janet
canceled, so I don't
Langley.
know.
Who was Ted?
Ted O'Brien. He's
Ted O'Brien
fabulous.
and
I loved
Janet
them
Langley.
both, yeah.
Oh, Ted, not Janet Langley.
No.
That was a different
Janet,
one.
Jagalian.
Jagalian,
Janet
thank
Jagalian.
you.
Yeah, she was a great lady.
Okay, fine.
Jagalian, yeah.
Okay, good. So
Yep.
what's your candy thing?
My favorite candy to hand out at Halloween
Yeah.
is something that's different that kids don't ever
What
get.
is it?
Sesame candy.
Oh, like the Asian thing. I love that. I
Yes,
love that.
Yes. They are the best
Fabulous.
because the kids don't get.
You know who loved those? Ted O'Brien loved those. Did you know that? Or Janet, whoever she was,
Janet
really
Jagalian,
loved
she
those.
ran for governor. I remember interviewing her when she ran for
fine.
governor.
That was then. This
it was
is
a
now.
great radio
We're here.
show.
They're not.
As we say,
okay.
back in the day.
I loved Ted O'Brien, by the way.
I
And,
I
she
love
was
them
fun,
both.
too.
That was when radio, when it was a heyday, when people
Was.
actually listened to AM radio. Anyway.
You know, you may be the longest. Has there ever been a woman on talk radio in Boston longer than you?
I don't know, Jim.
I don't know.
I could be
hanging by a thread.
Hanging by a thread.
Okay,
that's
we're
right.
done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for listening to another
I'm a very
edition
big
of
fan of
Boston
yours,
Public Radio.
actually.
Thank you, Jim. I'm a
You're
big
welcome.
fan of yours.
I doubt that.
Some days, anyway.
Okay, good.
Keep up with us 24/7 by way of our
Please.
podcast. Tomorrow, we're going to be joined by Harvard National Security expert Juliet Kayyem, the Boston Globe's Meredith Goldstein, and Ivy Scott join us to discuss their criminal justice-themed Love Letters series. That's going to be great. Michael Kirk of Frontline on the new documentary about Mitch McConnell and his ironclad grip on America's courts. And Kirk Carapezza, our colleague, and John Marcus. We have a new GBH News podcast called College Uncovered. You're going to learn a lot about colleges that you did not know, including should you even go to them anymore? Our crew is Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss. Our engineer is John the Claw Parker. He's the one that knows everything. And our executive producer is Jamie Bologna. Special thanks to BPL team, Maddie Geyer, Sai Patel, and Angelica Marrero. I think I saw Sandra here today, too.
She is
somewhere,
here.
Didn't I?
She's right there.
Yeah, Sandra's
Hey,
there.
Sandra, how are you? You don't have to do that. That's a little bit much.
Okay.
Thank you very much. It was nice to see you.
I'm Marjorie Egan.
Oh, I'm Jim Browdy.
Thanks again for tuning in
Forgot
today.
for a
Have a
second.
great Halloween.
Oops.
Hope you have a lot of fun in your neighborhood.
Oh, happy
And hope your
Halloween to
kids
you, yeah.
Have a blast.
Bye.
Hope you can tune in tomorrow. Bye.